Chapter 11:17. It was a new day. The sun was shining brightly and the weather was fine. However, it was too humid in Chengdu in summer. Li Xiang was still the same Li Xiang. Although he had accepted the fact that he used to be Qin Xing, he didn't want to be Qin Xing, so he was still Li Xiang. Or perhaps, he still had more to consider. This time, Li Xiang slept until 11 o'clock. He hadn't slept for so long, and it had been a long time since he had slept so comfortably. A few days ago, he often dreamed of the people and things in the memory fragments, but he didn't dream of anything yesterday. Maybe he had already known what he should know. Li Xiang didn't see his aunt when he got up. Seeing 2 calls from Gu Xining, he called her back. Gu Xining asked him to go shopping with her in the afternoon, and Li Xiang agreed without thinking much. Li Xiang thought that his aunt went to the bookstore, so he went to the bookstore directly after washing up. However, he found that only Ning was in the bookstore, and his aunt was not there. This was not right. Where did his aunt go? Ning, didn't you see my aunt? Li Xiang asked. Li Xiang was not the same Li Xiang when he saw Ning again. However, his feelings for Ning were still the same. In the past, he thought that Ning had a hard life and wanted to change something, but he couldn't. But now he could completely change her fate. If they really left Chengdu, he would ask for Ning's opinion. Whether Ning was willing to go to Beijing with them or not, he would arrange everything well. He would never let this poor girl suffer any more, because he had the ability. Ning answered honestly, "Yes, but my aunt said that she was going to meet a friend and would come back in the evening. She told us to leave her alone for dinner." Li Xiang didn't say anything. He took a book and sat on the bed in a daze. Ning always felt that Li Xiang was a little strange today, as if he was a little different from usual. However, she couldn't tell what was wrong. She just felt that he was a little strange. It was not surprising that Ning had this feeling, because Li Xiang was not Li Xiang anymore, but Qin Xing. Li Xiang ordered takeout for lunch. Today, the takeout he ordered was very sumptuous. It could be said that it was a seafood feast, which cost him more than 1,000 yuan. When everything had been revealed, would Li Xiang still be short of money in the future? What he should be thinking about was how to spend all the money. Li Xiang felt that it was ridiculous. Just a while ago, he was still envious of other rich people. He was still thinking about what he would do if he became rich in the future. Suddenly those goals were meaningless because for him those goals were in the past, and he could easily achieve thousands of such goals. Li Xiang suddenly felt that life was a bit boring. When Ning went upstairs and saw so much seafood on the table, she was a little stunned. She had only eaten seafood a few times in her life. Why did Li Xiang suddenly order such a sumptuous seafood takeout today? Ning said with a confused look, "Brother Li Xiang, did you win the lottery?" When Li Xiang saw Ning's expression and heard Ning's words, he instantly understood what Ning was thinking. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he walked towards Ning. He said, "If I had such luck, would we still need to open a shop?" Ning thought about it and agreed. The probability was too small, but what happened to Li Xiang today? Today there was only her and Li Xiang. Why was the takeaway so sumptuous? Usually, even if they went out to eat, they would only go to a tiny restaurant. How could they dare to be so extravagant? Suddenly, Ning thought of something terrible. Could it be Gu Xining? Ning covered her mouth and said, "Li Xiang, are you being kept by Gu Xining, that fair, rich, and beautiful woman?" After saying this, Ning didn't expect that she would blurt it out. If it was on a normal day, she would definitely not dare to say such words. But what was wrong with her today? Li Xiang didn't expect that such words would come out of Ning's mouth. Was this his image in Ning's mind, or did Ning have some misunderstanding about him recently? In Ning's mind, as an old single dog, he didn't have anything he wanted. If a fair, rich, and beautiful woman suddenly appeared, it was very likely that he would fall for her. But how could she know that her current brother Li Xiang was not someone who could be kept by anyone? Even in the whole country, how many people could afford to keep him? Even if he had to be kept, it should be Gu Xining, right? Li Xiang was a little helpless. He directly hit Ning on the head and said, "What are you thinking? Is your brother Li Xiang that kind of person? If you don't eat, I will throw all these away." Ning didn't dare to think anymore. This was a sumptuous seafood feast. But she still muttered in her heart that something was wrong. When her aunt came back, she must tell the secret about him and Gu Xining. Otherwise, she was really afraid that brother Li Xiang would go astray. While they were eating, Li Xiang suddenly looked up and said, "Ning, have you ever thought about leaving Chengdu?" Ning was eating crab. She was stunned for a few seconds and said, "Brother Li Xiang, why do you ask this? If I leave Chengdu with my aunt one day, will you go with us?" Li Xiang asked directly. Ning suddenly found that the crab in her hand didn't taste good anymore. Because these years, except for her mother, she had never met anyone who was so nice to her. If it weren't for her aunt and brother Li Xiang, she didn't know what her life would be like. "Brother Li Xiang, are you and aunt leaving?" Ning asked with red eyes. Li Xiang didn't deny it. He said truthfully, "Even if I don't leave now, I will leave one day." Ning had never thought about leaving Chengdu, because she had lived here since she was a child. Her relatives, friends, and classmates were also here. Until now, she hadn't even been to other provinces, so she had never thought about leaving. If it was someone else who asked, Ning might refuse without hesitation. But it was her aunt and brother Li Xiang. Ning was a little hesitant. Seeing that Ning was hesitating, Li Xiang didn't think much and replied, "Ha ha, don't think too much. Hurry up and eat. I'm just saying." After dinner, when Li Xiang was cleaning up, there was a sudden noise downstairs. A few hooligans broke into the bookstore and shouted angrily, "Is your boss here?" Ning was sorting out the books. She turned around subconsciously and saw this group of people. Suddenly, she found that these people were a little familiar. They seemed to be the hooligans who came to ask for money last time. But this time, there were more people than last time. Could it be that her father, the gambler, lost money again and they came to ask for money? Thinking of this, Ning was a little flustered. She really hated her father, the gambler. If it weren't for him, her mother wouldn't have committed suicide. If it weren't for him, the first half of her life wouldn't have been so miserable. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have been almost sold. Fortunately, she met her aunt and brother Li Xiang. It was them who changed her fate. She wouldn't have been sold by her biological father as a wife. It should be known that she graduated from Sichuan University. Otherwise, her life would have been ruined. Thinking of this, Ning felt that if brother Li Xiang and her aunt wanted to leave Chengdu, she would definitely leave with them. She was willing to work for her aunt and brother Li Xiang for the rest of her life. A hooligan walked directly to Ning and asked, "Beauty, I asked you a question. Where's your boss?" Ning didn't understand. She trembled a little and stepped back subconsciously. At this time, Li Xiang happened to come down. He didn't see the people behind him. He directly shouted, "What do you want?" Seeing that Li Xiang had come down, the hooligan quickly shouted to the big brother behind him, "Big brother, he is here." At this time, Li Xiang observed carefully and found that this group of people was actually the hooligans who lent money and collected usury in the tea house. He never thought it would be them. Why did they come here? Li Xiang also thought, could it be that Ning's father, the gambler, lost money again, and these people came to ask for money again? They really think of themselves as a money tree. Thinking of this, Li Xiang said angrily, "I remember last time I said that if Ning Hai continues to gamble and owes usury, it's his own business. But if you dare to find Ning again, then don't blame me for being rude." The one in the middle of these hooligans was the muscular man with a big gold chain in the tea house that day. Li Xiang remembered that his name seemed to be Jin Zhu. Jin Zhu was still wearing a tight t-shirt today. The muscles all over his body were full of visual effect, and the gold chain around his neck was even more conspicuous. However, he knew that he was no match for the strange man in front of him. Moreover, he didn't come to ask for money today. "Brother, you misunderstood, absolutely misunderstood." Jin Zhu quickly walked over and said. Li Xiang frowned and said, "What do you mean?" Jin Zhu smiled and handed a cigarette to Li Xiang. He explained, "We didn't come to find Ning today, and we didn't come to ask for money or anything. Ning Hai, that bastard, was driven away by me. I also went out to spread the word that whoever dares to let Ning Hai gamble and borrow usury from Ning Hai, if I find out, I will break one of your legs. Don't worry." "Then what are you here for today?" Li Xiang was very confused. Jin Zhu said with a smile, "Brother, I know that you are good at martial arts, so I recommended you to my boss. My boss wants to meet you. He said that if you are really good, he will recommend you to Master Chen." Jin Zhu was afraid that Li Xiang didn't know who Master Chen was, so he took the opportunity to explain, "Do you know Master Chen? He is a top figure in Chengdu, and there is nothing that he can't solve. If you follow Master Chen, you will definitely be successful. That's why I came to find you." Li Xiang was a little confused. This was what was going on. But who was this Master Chen? Didn't they say that Master Ma, who was standing behind Gu Jiani, was the big boss in Chengdu? And that Master Zhao? Li Xiang suddenly didn't understand. Chapter 11-18. Since ancient times, Li Xiang knew that there were many brother Pao. However, there was Master Zhao and Master Ma before, and now there was Master Chen. Li Xiang was confused. Everyone said that he was a big shot, but who was the real big shot? Moreover, what did these big shots have to do with him? If it was in the past, Li Xiang would have been worried that Gu Jiani would find Master Ma to target him, and he would have been afraid of it, so he would have latched onto Master Chen. However, after last night, Li Xiang was no longer the same Li Xiang. Even if the Master Zhao that Liang Zhe mentioned appeared, he would not be afraid at all. Master Zhao? Li Xiang seemed to have figured out his identity. If he was really the person that Liang Zhe mentioned, then everything would be very simple. Li Xiang wanted to reject him directly, but he suddenly changed his mind. If Master Chen went against Master Ma, what would happen? Who would be more powerful? Thinking of this, Li Xiang said to Jin Zhu directly, "I don't have time to see your boss. If you go to see Master Chen directly, I will think about it." Jin Zhu was stunned after hearing this. Before Jin Zhu could reply, one of Jin Zhu's underlings shouted, "Brother, you are too arrogant. Why don't you weigh yourself first? You want to see Master Chen directly? Is Master Chen someone you can see whenever you want? We are not qualified, who do you think you are? Then there is nothing to talk about?" Li Xiang said disapprovingly. At this time, Jin Zhu came back to his senses and said with a smile, "Li Xiang, this is a bit inappropriate. Even if I want you to kill Master Chen, I don't have the ability. You have to meet my boss first." Jin Zhu recommended Li Xiang to his boss. Of course, it was all for his own sake. First of all, if Li Xiang was really recommended by his boss to Master Chen, then his status in front of his boss would also rise. Moreover, if Li Xiang became successful in the future, he would have a good life. If his boss didn't like him, then he would pretend that nothing happened. After hearing this, Li Xiang thought about it and agreed. Jin Zhu was just a small character. He really didn't have the ability. After thinking for a while, Li Xiang said directly, "I will only give your boss an hour. I have to go shopping with my girlfriend in the afternoon." When Jin Zhu heard this, he was secretly delighted. He said that he would go out and make a phone call, and asked Li Xiang to wait for a moment. Li Xiang found a random seat and sat down. Seeing that Ning was a little scared behind him, he explained, "Ning, it's okay. I'm not here to collect the debt. Go ahead with your business. Don't be afraid. I'm here." Although Ning heard this, she was still a little afraid. After all, the bookstore was full of hooligans. How could she not be afraid? Li Xiang roughly understood and scolded them with a smile. If you don't want to buy books or flowers, can you go out and wait? Don't stand here and be an eyesore. Who would dare to come in when they see you? Li Xiang's words were a little arrogant, and these hoodlums were a little annoyed, but because of Li Xiang's skills, they didn't dare to be presumptuous. Li Xiang continued to scold. Big eye and small eye, I'm talking to you. What are you staring at? Do you want to be beaten? And the one wearing tight pants, do you have no money to buy clothes? Aren't you afraid of strangling your balls? If you don't get out, don't blame me for practicing on you. He couldn't win in a fight, and he couldn't win in an argument either. These hoodlums had no choice but to leave the bookstore obediently in the end. They muttered in their hearts, I'm a great man, I'll forgive you this time. To these people, Li Xiang really didn't need to be polite. A few minutes later, Jin Zhu hurriedly ran in. The weather outside was indeed a little hot, and Jin Zhu's forehead was full of sweat. His body was probably too weak. Jin Zhu after coming, he said, Li Xiang, my boss happens to have time now. Let's go there. Okay. Li Xiang didn't talk much and directly agreed. Jin Zhu immediately drove Li Xiang to see his boss. He was quite concerned about this matter. After all, it was related to his future. On the way, Jin Zhu kept reminding Li Xiang to be low-key when he saw his boss. Don't be as arrogant as before. Otherwise, if something happened, he wouldn't be able to protect him. Li Xiang didn't take it to heart at all. About half an hour later, they arrived at a fight club on the edge of the Third Ring Road. This fight club was opened by Jin Zhu's boss. He would come here to practice almost every week. Many of his fierce subordinates were trained here. After Jin Zhu parked the car, he brought Li Xiang in. Other people weren't qualified to enter, so they obediently waited in the car. At the entrance of the club, Li Xiang and Jin Zhu were searched. After all, Jin Zhu's boss was still a small figure in Chengdu. He had offended many people, so he was more cautious. This fight club was a converted small factory. Upstairs was a fitness club, and downstairs was a fight club. However, if Jin Zhu's boss didn't come, the fight club wouldn't receive other people. After Li Xiang came in, he found that there were 5 or 6 rings inside. On each ring, there were fighters wearing boxing clothes sparring. Their skills seemed to be pretty good. They were definitely more powerful than ordinary people. Just their muscles were enough to scare a lot of people. In the middle of the ring, a more mature man wearing sportswear was drinking tea. This man looked to be in his 30s. His figure was well maintained, and his exposed muscles were full of visual effects. Li Xiang didn't need to guess to know that he was Jin Zhu's boss. Only Jin Zhu's boss could have this kind of extravagance. After all, there was a beautiful woman sitting next to him, but she was also wearing very hot clothes. Her upper body was wearing a low-cut black short-sleeved shirt, and her lower body was wearing short hot pants that could not be shorter. Her body was full of curves, and many men were sneaking glances at her, but they only dared to do so. After all, she was boss Jin Zhu's woman, and they did not dare to mess around. Jin Zhu brought Li Xiang over slowly. Before he got close, he was stopped by 2 of his boss's subordinates. Both of them were muscular men. It seemed like Jin Zhu's boss liked muscular men. Big brother, I've brought the person. Jin Zhu still had some confidence in front of Li Xiang, but in front of his big brother, he couldn't be any more obedient, just like a mouse seeing a cat. The big brother was still watching the match on the stage. He didn't even raise his head and said perfunctorily, "You're here." Although Jin Zhu followed this big brother, he didn't have any qualifications in front of him. He was a dispensable character. If he didn't recommend Li Xiang, his big brother probably wouldn't want to see him for 10 days or half a month. After all, the things that Jin Zhu did were too low level. Jin Zhu nodded and bowed. Yes, I'm here. Big brother, you see. The big brother still didn't turn his head and said, "You go, I'll talk to him." Jin Zhu was stunned for a few seconds when he heard this. He wanted to talk to his big brother about other things, but he didn't expect his big brother to drive him away. Moreover, he was afraid that Li Xiang would offend his big brother. If he was present, he could ease the atmosphere. Most importantly, he was afraid that Li Xiang would implicate him. Jin Zhu said timidly, "Big brother, this?" The big brother coldly snorted. Yes, Jin Zhu was shocked. It was obvious that his big brother was angry. He quickly said, Okay. Big brother, you go ahead with your business. I'll leave first." When Jin Zhu left, he looked at Li Xiang calmly. His eyes seemed to say, "Brother, you better pray for your own good. You asked for it, I can't help you any more." After Jin Zhu left, the big brother said slowly, "You're Li Xiang?" Li Xiang had been ignored all the time. He felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. He was just a small fry. Why did he put on airs? There were so many pretentious people in this world. "I'm Li Xiang." Li Xiang replied disdainfully. His eyes were also on the stage. He didn't even look at the big brother. The big brother continued, "Do you want to see Master Chen? It doesn't matter whether I see him or not." Li Xiang laughed. This sentence completely angered Jin Zhu's big brother. Even the beauty frowned slightly when she heard this, because this young man's words were indeed a little arrogant. "That's Master Chen. Who do you think you are?" The big brother finally turned his head. Seeing that Li Xiang didn't have any intention to talk to him, he couldn't help but feel a little angry. He sneered and said, "You're a little arrogant." Li Xiang said faintly, "I have the capital." After he said this, the big brother's face changed instantly. With just a glance, the two muscular men standing beside him almost didn't hesitate and directly rushed towards Li Xiang. Li Xiang didn't want to be polite with them. He came here to kill time. If he didn't provoke them, how could he get to the main topic? When the big brother's two subordinates made their move, Li Xiang had already made the first move. His speed was so fast that the two men couldn't even react. He took advantage of the situation and bent down. He punched the chin of the man on the left. The man was directly forced to take a few steps back. It could be seen how powerful Li Xiang's attack was. At this time, the man on the right reacted and made his move. However, Li Xiang had already grabbed his arm. Then, Li Xiang exerted strength from the soles of his feet and jumped high. He directly hit the chest of this man with his knee and sent him flying. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Jin Zhu's big brother also came back to his senses. He realized that something was wrong. But just when he stood up, Li Xiang was already holding a pen in his hand. The pen head was directly pressed against the big brother's neck. He didn't even have the chance to fight back. Li Xiang was no longer the Li Xiang of the past. This big brother's subordinates could only deal with ordinary people. But when they encountered a ruthless character like Li Xiang, they were simply trash. They were even weaker than his previous bodyguard. "Who the hell are you?" The big brother squinted his eyes and asked. As for the hot beauty beside the big brother, she was so scared that she lost her voice and screamed. The movement here was too big. It attracted the attention of everyone present. When they saw this scene, everyone was shocked. Almost all of them subconsciously rushed over and directly surrounded Li Xiang. Li Xiang asked faintly, "How should I address you?" "You Kai." Jin Zhu's big brother replied in a deep voice. Although he was shocked by the man in front of him, he wasn't afraid. Even if Yu Kai made a move on him, he wouldn't be able to get out of here today. Yu Kai really didn't expect that a man introduced by Jin Zhu would have such strength. He didn't take it seriously at first. But now, he had no choice but to take it seriously. Could it be that he was sent by the enemy to kill me? Or his ultimate goal was Master Chen? After all, the person he wanted to see was Master Chen. Li Xiang said in a low voice, "Nice name. What do you want?" Yu Kai continued to ask. Li Xiang laughed and said, "I said that I have the capital. You didn't believe me. Do you believe me now?" Yu Kai didn't dare to not believe him. He said calmly, "I believe you. Hearing this, Li Xiang was satisfied. He directly let go of the pen in his hand and said with a smile, "Can we talk now?" Yu Kai didn't expect it to be a false alarm. He couldn't understand the man in front of him, but his strength and courage had already conquered him. Chapter 11:19. Li Xiang used to wonder why he was so good at fighting. He had never practiced before. Most of the time, it was just an instinctive reaction. In the end, he slowly got used to it. Once, he asked his aunt if he had been a soldier or a bodyguard. Otherwise, how could he be so good at fighting? His aunt smiled and told him that he used to be a peerless expert. He was chased by his enemies, so he ended up here. Li Xiang was skeptical at first because he lost his memory and couldn't remember the past. But later on, he didn't believe it at all. How could it be possible? But from then on, when his aunt had nothing to do, she would teach him some martial arts. At that time, he knew that his aunt was the real peerless master, just like those hidden masters in the TV series, not to mention that his aunt was so beautiful. Now Li Xiang finally understood why he was so good at fighting. It turned out that he had been practicing since he was young. It turned out that he had escaped from the gates of hell many times. Turned out that all of these were actual combat experience. No wonder he was so good. Li Xiang thought about it again. After receiving his aunt's teachings, did he become more powerful than before? That was why Li Xiang was so confident today. He really had the capital to do so. He really didn't take Yu Kai seriously. He just wanted to watch a good show. Li Xiang conquered Yu Kai with his strength. If Yu Kai used the human wave tactic to get back at him, he would really lose his face. He stood up awkwardly and said, "Nothing, we were just joking. You guys go do your own things." The others were a little confused, but they didn't continue to ask. They could only leave obediently. As for Yu Kai's two subordinates, they had already gone down to take care of their wounds. Yu Kai did not allow anyone else to approach. He suddenly had the intention to take Li Xiang as his confidant. If that was the case, wouldn't his strength skyrocket in the future? Still not getting up? Yu Kai stared at the female companion beside him. She really didn't know how to read people. The hot beauty got up with some hidden bitterness. She stood beside Yu Kai and snorted coldly. Li Xiang did not stand on ceremony and sat down naturally. Then, he glanced at the beautiful woman with a hot body. Those with money and power would never lack beauties like this. After all, life was sometimes too hard. No one could always stick to their original intentions. In the end, they could only choose to take that shortcut. Yu Kai found that Li Xiang was staring at the beauty beside him. He thought that Li Xiang liked this kind of beauty. Since he liked you, it would be easy. He directly pushed the beauty over and said, "Come, Yu, sit on your brother Li Xiang's lap." The beauty called Yu didn't expect Yu Kai to do this, but she didn't dare to go against Yu Kai's will. She awkwardly sat on Li Xiang's lap, looking very embarrassed. Li Xiang was not polite at all. He directly placed his hand on Yu's slender and beautiful legs, gently stroking and playing with them. When his legs came into contact with Yu's skin, Yu subconsciously trembled. She did not expect this man to be so presumptuous in front of Yu Kai. Yu Kai's expression changed slightly. Although he felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, what was a woman to him? Li Xiang did this to test Yu Kai's bottom line. "Li Xiang, what do you say? Are you willing to follow me? I can guarantee that you will have a meteoric rise, and you will not lack anything in the future," Yu Kai said directly. Li Xiang laughed and said, "Brother, I just said that I want to see Master Chen. What do you mean by asking me to stay by your side?" "Li Xiang, I am cherishing talent. With your skills, you can do well wherever you go. I naturally have to seize the opportunity," Yu Kai said truthfully. Said Yu Kai. Li Xiang shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, I want to see Master Chen. Even if I stay by your side, do you think you can keep me?" This was the truth. Yu Kai could see that Li Xiang was very ambitious. Obviously, it was impossible for him to stay by his side. Even if he stayed, he would leave sooner or later. There is no room for discussion. I can give you everything you want, Yukai said somewhat unwillingly. At the same time, he glanced at Yu. His meaning was very clear. Li Xiang just smiled lightly and did not reply. Yukai also knew that there was no other way. In his eyes, Li Xiang was definitely a person. However, he still had to investigate Li Xiang's background. He could not introduce everyone to Master Chen. Okay, go back and wait for my call. Yukai thought for a while and said so. Li Xiang was very satisfied when he heard this. He smiled and said thank you, brother. Then he pushed Yu away and left directly. After all, it seemed to be more interesting to go shopping with beauties. He had not gone shopping with beauties for a long time. What he especially enjoyed was the envious and jealous looks from other men. After Li Xiang left, Yukai sighed and said, "How arrogant." Humph. Yu was a little angry and ignored Yukai. Yukai smiled and coaxed her for a while. Women were nothing more than satisfying what they wanted. Then Yukai called his confidant and asked him to investigate Li Xiang's background. Chuanxi Road, Chengdu. This was always the most lively place in Chengdu. Of course, this was also the place with the most beauties in Chengdu. Because the most prosperous shopping malls in Chengdu were gathered here. Chengdu, Yuanyang Taili, Chuanguang Square, Crystal Fusion, and so on. The street photography in Taili was famous far and wide. Every day, countless photographers took photos of beauties in the street. Chengdu and Yuanyang Taili were also famous luxury shopping malls in the whole southwest. Every year, they were ranked at the top of the national shopping malls. Gu Xining came here to go shopping today. She had been waiting for Li Xiang and Taili for a long time. Unfortunately, Li Xiang was late because he went to see Yukai. As a result, many photographers chased after her. In the end, Gu Xining hid in a luxury store that she often went shopping in. She did not like to be photographed like this. When Li Xiang rushed over, Gu Xining, who was in a bad mood, had already bought several things in this store. When she saw Li Xiang, she said unhappily, "You pay." Li Xiang was not Li Xiang anymore. Li Xiang felt it was quite interesting to see Gu Xining again. If he did not know what happened in the past, he might really fall in love with this girl after spending a long time with Gu Xining. But the current Li Xiang would definitely not do that. Because he owed too many love debts, how could he hurt Gu Xining again? Therefore, he only wanted to help Gu Xining solve the problems in her family. After all, this girl treated him quite well. Li Xiang said with a cheeky smile, "Rich woman, you know that I am poor. I am your sugar daddy. How can I have money? These things are too expensive. Even if you sell me, it will not be enough." The waiters in this luxury store were all well-mannered. They just smiled and looked at Gu Xining and Li Xiang. Moreover, they were quite familiar with Gu Xining and could be counted as regular customers here. They had never seen Gu Xining go shopping with a man, so they were quite surprised to see Li Xiang today. Anyone could see that Li Xiang was Gu Xining's boyfriend, but they could also see that Li Xiang was older than Gu Xining. However, Li Xiang's temperament made them feel that Li Xiang did not look like a poor man. They felt that Li Xiang was joking on purpose. "Humph, then why don't you help me carry the bag?" Gu Xining said unhappily. Without saying anything, Li Xiang immediately went up to help Gu Xining carry the bag. Physical work was naturally done by men. Women only needed to enjoy themselves. In the end, Gu Xining swiped her card naturally. Tens of thousands of yuan were gone just like that. Looking at Li Xiang, she felt a little sorry. The waiters didn't expect that Gu Xining would pay the bill herself. Could it be that this man really lived off a woman? When they walked out of this store, Gu Xining bought sunglasses for both her and Li Xiang. In this way, they could escape from those boring photographers. Today, Li Xiang was very relaxed. He did not have the pressure that he had when he was with Gu Xining. Now he would not feel pressure in front of most people. When they were shopping, Li Xiang smiled and helped Gu Xining to consult. Gu Xining did not expect that Li Xiang had such a good taste. He had a unique understanding of major brands. This made Gu Xining wonder what Li Xiang did before. Was he also in the sales of luxury goods? Later, Gu Xining began to look at Li Xiang. The more she looked at him, the more she found that today Li Xiang seemed to be a little different from usual. However, she could not tell what was different. She always felt that his temperament had changed again. It seemed that he was more experienced than before. When they found a coffee shop to rest, Gu Xining held her chin and kept staring at Li Xiang. Li Xiang felt a little funny and said, "Is there something on my face?" "You are a little strange today," Gu Xining replied directly. Li Xiang was a little surprised. Did she really see something? "I am not strange. You are so suspicious." Li Xiang shook his head and said. Gu Xining thought for a while and said, "Did my uncle look for you again?" "No, but I do want to find your uncle. But let's talk about it after I finish something," Li Xiang said with great interest. Gu Xining asked, "What is it?" "I won't tell you now," Li Xiang said with a smile. Gu Xining felt that Li Xiang was deliberately mystifying, so she ignored him. She was a little hungry now, so she was going to take Li Xiang to find a place to eat. In the evening, when they were having dinner, Li Xiang took the initiative to tell Gu Xining that he would treat her mother to dinner tomorrow. Gu Xining was a little surprised. She did not know what Li Xiang meant. Li Xiang accompanied Gu Xining all the time. He did not leave until it was almost time. Gu Xining said that she would not accompany him tonight because she had something to do. Li Xiang did not say anything. In fact, after tonight, he would not go to Juyan Bridge to sing, because it was not necessary. However, he had to finish what he started. It was appropriate to say goodbye to Brother Chow and the bar after he sang the last song tonight. When he went to Juyan Bridge in the evening, Li Xiang's mood was different from usual. He walked to the door of a very familiar bar. He had passed this bar almost every day recently, but he did not expect that he had such a deep relationship with this bar. Because he had met her in this very bar. From then on, their lives intersected. From then on, they became each other's concern. But now, she was in the United States, and he was in Chengdu. He did not know whether she was doing well or not. Li Xiang stopped for a few minutes and then went to the bar where he was going to sing. It would be difficult to see Li Xiang singing in a bar with a guitar on his back in the future. When Li Xiang wanted to sing in a bar, a beautiful woman who came all the way from Beijing quietly stood at the door of the bar, which attracted a lot of attention. Because this beautiful woman's aura was very strong, people did not dare to look at her directly, and they even took the initiative to avoid her. She finally came. She had waited for this day for 3 years. Chapter 11:20. The night is too beautiful, that's the game of gods. In your heart there are thousands of miles of mountains and seas galloping. The city is too beautiful, how much of it belongs to you? In your heart there are thousands of horses galloping. On the 3rd floor of the bar, Li Xiang was singing a song by a band he liked a lot. He changed the song slightly and sang it with a very deep voice. He was like a middle-aged man who had experienced the vicissitudes of life, standing on the roof of a skyscraper at night, drinking a bottle of cheap white wine, smoking a pack of cheap cigarettes that only cost a few yuan, looking at the bustling city, lamenting the fact that he had accomplished nothing in the first half of his life. He had already told Brother Chow that after tonight, he would not come here to sing anymore. Surprisingly, Brother Chow did not scold him. He seemed to understand that Li Xiang would not sing here for the rest of his life. After all, this kind of life was too insecure. He thought that Li Xiang had found a more suitable job, but he did not ask much. Most of the people here were just passers-by, whether they were tourists in a hurry, wandering singers with guitars on their backs, or bands playing in small groups. Every city had its own characteristics, and Julian Bridge was destined to be one of Chengdu's characteristics. Just when Li Xiang was about to sing, at this moment, there was an elegant beauty staring at him with gentle eyes at the staircase. She looked at him quietly with a faint smile on her face. Her eyes were firm and gentle, as if she did not want to move her eyes away from Li Xiang for even half a second. It had been 3 years. She had waited for 3 years, as if she wanted to make up for those 3 years, as if she was afraid that she would not be able to see this man in front of her the next second. After 3 years, her heart had become strong enough, so strong that she exuded an aura that repelled people thousands of miles away. Passers-by did not even dare to look at her, they would actively avoid her, let alone talk to her. Of course, it might also be because of the extremely dangerous middle-aged man standing behind her. The middle-aged man's temperament was just like those middle-aged men on TV or in the movies, exuding a sense of maturity and confidence. However, this middle-aged man's eyes were very sharp. He did not look at the young singer on the stage, who was once very familiar with him. Instead, he observed the environment around the woman. If anyone dared to approach the woman, the uncle would give them a warning with his sharp eyes, which scared those people away from them. Such a combination was strange. Such a combination did not look like ordinary people. Who would dare to provoke them? When Li Xiang finished singing on the stage, the middle-aged man asked thoughtfully, "Aren't you going in?" The woman smiled and shook her head. "Don't worry. I've waited for 3 years. I don't mind waiting a little longer." The middle-aged man didn't say much. He had never been able to influence this woman's thoughts. Since the disappearance of this young man, he had been protecting this woman in front of him. This was his atonement. On the stage, Li Xiang did not notice what was happening at the staircase. He continued to sing quietly, enjoying his last moments of peace. Meanwhile, on the top floor of the Shangri-La Hotel opposite the Nine Eyes Bridge, a man and a woman were staring at the Nine Eyes Bridge in a daze. From their gazes, they seemed to be staring at the bar where Li Xiang sang. One of them was Li Xiang's aunt. Today she was wearing a white dress. She did not disguise herself, but revealed her original appearance. Beautiful and stunning. Extremely beautiful. It seemed that there were no words to describe her. On the top floor at night the wind was a little strong. It blew up her dress and hair. If one did not look carefully, if one did not see the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, it would be impossible to guess this woman's age. It seemed that 30 was the limit. Standing next to the woman, the old man bent his body and asked, "Has he regained his memory?" The old man looked a little thin, as if he could be blown away by the wind. The most obvious sign on him was the hat he was wearing. His life was less than 100 years old. The old man was already 70 years old. He was none other than Qin Changxing, the current pillar of the Qin family. Since Qin Chang'an's imprisonment and Qin Sheng's disappearance, Qin Changxing had shouldered the banner of the Qin family's rise and fall. After all, he had escaped for so many years, and now it was time to pay the debt. Aunt shook her head and smiled bitterly. "Yes, he has recovered. He just doesn't want to admit it." Qin Changxing said calmly, "There is always a process, but the result is the same. He is Qin Sheng, and he can only be Qin Sheng." Aunt asked casually, "This time, you gave the opportunity to Song Ruyu?" Qin Changxing explained honestly, "It has been 3 years. It's time to give the Song family an explanation. If it were not for Ruyu's insistence, the Song family would not have supported our Qin family so much. I made a promise to old Master Song, and now I finally keep my promise." Aunt said disapprovingly, "How do you know that he doesn't want to see other women? What about Lin Su, Qing'er or Su Qin?" Qin Changxing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "This guy owes too many love debt. What can I do? Anyway, they will meet sooner or later, and I am not in a hurry. This time, I will give the opportunity to Ruyu. After all, she will be the hostess of the Qin family in the future." Aunt deliberately said, Do you have the final say on this matter, or him? They are engaged. What do you think? Of course, Qin Changxing knew what his sister was asking. Aunt sneered and said, "But Lin Su has given birth to a child for Qin Xing, and this child carries the bloodline of the Qin family." Qin Changxing said with some emotion, "To be honest, I finally understood why you took him away for 3 years and forced him to lose his memory for 3 years. If you didn't do that, he would have had a hard time in the past 3 years." In the past 3 years, Li Xiang happened to avoid a storm, and also solved his love problem in a roundabout way, which saved the Qin family a lot of trouble. Otherwise, the Qin family would not be able to give an explanation to the Zhu family or the Song family. Qin Xing really buried a time bomb for the Qin family. When Qin Changxing knew about it, he was really shocked. Fortunately, in the past 3 years, most of the troubles had been solved. Aunt shook her head and said, "I didn't think that much." Qin Changxing didn't ask further, because this little sister was the biggest guardian of the Qin family. However, the Qin family had been too smooth these years, and they didn't need this little sister to do anything at all, so everyone had forgotten her existence. In the past, Qin Xing's mother died in a car accident. Didn't the Qin family know who the murderer was? Of course they knew. Since they knew, how could the Qin family not take revenge? Of course they had to take revenge. Therefore, Elder Long also paid the same price, and his son and daughter-in-law died tragically in a foreign land. That was the real reason why Elder Long wanted to kill Qin Xing. He wanted the Qin family to have no descendants. That was why Elder Long wanted to kill Qin Xing. In these years, both sides had been conserving their strength, waiting for the final battle, and finally, the Qin family would win. At this time, both of them remained silent, and no one knew what they were thinking. However, from their eyes, it could be seen that they were still staring at the Nine-Eye Bridge bar. Maybe at this moment, Qin Xing and Song Ruyu had already met. In the bar, Li Xiang was still singing. Gu Xining didn't come today, so Li Xiang lost a loyal fan. Even the regular customers were not used to it. After all, it was also a pleasure to see beautiful women. What a pity! Brother Chow, who was in charge of the 3rd floor, felt helpless. Li Xiang was about to leave, and he was reluctant to let him go. Because he liked Li Xiang's singing, and Li Xiang had made the business on the 3rd floor better again. Many customers came to the 3rd floor for Li Xiang, and many of them were beautiful women. Although they were not as beautiful as Gu Xining, Brother Chow was not picky. As long as they were beautiful women. However, Gu Chow suddenly noticed that there was a beauty who was even more stunning than Gu Xining standing at the stairs. More importantly, this beauty's aura was too powerful, and Gu Chow didn't dare to look at her directly. He stole a few glances at her. She was too beautiful, and most importantly, she was too elegant. The beautiful woman kept staring at Li Xiang, and Brother Chow knew that she must be Li Xiang's fan, which made him feel jealous. Unfortunately, he didn't have this ability. Otherwise, he could attract so many beautiful women, and he wouldn't be single now. He had heard that many singers liked to hook up with their fans, and many of them had slept with their fans. Even Li Xiang, the bastard, had hooked up with a fair, rich, and beautiful woman. It was really infuriating. Brother Chow didn't know whether it was because of the bar's business, or because he wanted to get to know this beautiful woman. In the end, he braced himself and walked over. Brother Chow took the initiative and said, "Beauty, let's do it inside." At that moment, the middle-aged man standing behind the beautiful woman suddenly stopped Brother Chow, not allowing him to take another step forward. Only then did Brother Chow notice this middle-aged man. He was shocked by the middle-aged man's gaze. The middle-aged man's gaze was too sharp. Brother Chow had seen many scenes, and he knew that this beautiful woman was not an ordinary person, and this middle-aged man must be the beautiful woman's bodyguard. He could only smile bitterly, and finally went back awkwardly. At this time, the beautiful woman finally moved. She took a deep breath, and finally made up her mind. She walked into the bar slowly, while the middle-aged man didn't move, and just observed the environment in the bar. After 3 years, this kind of reunion should only belong to them. When the beautiful woman walked in, Li Xiang didn't pay attention to her, and he just concentrated on singing. After this song, his short career as a resident singer would end. However, when the beautiful woman sat down, Li Xiang subconsciously looked at her, as if his eyes were not under his control, and there was a strong magnetic field attracting him to look at her. When he saw the beautiful woman, only for a second, Li Xiang was completely stunned, and the guitar in his hand also stopped. Time froze, and 10,000 years passed in 1 second. All the memories rushed into his mind, and Li Xiang's mind went blank. He put down the guitar uncontrollably, and under everyone's surprised gaze, he walked down the stage, and slowly walked towards the beautiful woman who was sitting there and looking at him with a smile. This scene caused everyone to be somewhat dumbfounded. Brother Chow wanted to curse. Li Xiang, what the hell are you doing? Can't you walk after seeing a beautiful woman? Why did you come over to talk to her? This is too much. However, when Brother Chow saw Li Xiang's expression, he thought, does Li Xiang know this beautiful woman? Finally, Li Xiang walked in front of the beautiful woman. It was just a few steps, but he felt that it was a long distance, as if he had walked for a century or a lifetime. The beautiful woman didn't speak, and her heart was as still as water. She kept looking at him with a smile, as if looking at him like this was enough. When Li Xiang walked in front of the beautiful woman, she finally stood up, and she didn't know how to call him. Li Xiang or Qin Sheng. After hesitating for a long time, she finally said, Li Xiang? But the man called Li Xiang said in a deep voice, from today on, my name is Qin Sheng. At this moment, the beautiful woman finally couldn't bear it anymore, and her tears fell like rain. His name was Qin Sheng. Her name was Song Ryu. Chapter 11:21. When would he go back? Song Ryu had been calm ever since she heard the news about Qin Sheng. She was neither sad nor happy. After all, she had been waiting for him for 3 years. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. However, for Song Ryu, more than 1,090 days and nights were a long wait and endless yearning. She seemed to be used to such a life. She just waited quietly for Qin Sheng to come back. Song Ryu was not excited even when she saw Qin Sheng, as if what she had experienced in the past 3 years was just a dream. Qin Sheng was still the same Qin Sheng, and she was still the same Song Ryu. Song Ryu finally calmed herself down and walked into the bar slowly. She found a random seat and sat down quietly. She just wanted to listen to Qin Sheng's singing quietly. It seemed that she was satisfied. However, she didn't expect that Qin Sheng would put down his guitar and walk down after seeing her. Song Ryu was a little surprised, but she was not nervous or excited. Because she didn't know whether he was Li Xiang or Qin Sheng. She knew that he had regained some of his memories, but she didn't know how much. Maybe he didn't really remember her, or maybe she was just a little familiar. So she stood up and greeted him with a smile. She called his current name so that he wouldn't be embarrassed. However, she didn't expect that he would directly say, from now on, my name is Qin Sheng. At this moment, she couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She knew that he had completely regained his memories. Even if he hadn't regained his memories, it was all worth it since he could recognize her. What was Li Xiang thinking at this moment? No, it should be Qin Sheng thinking about something. From today on, he was Qin Sheng, not Li Xiang. Li Xiang had become a thing of the past. When Qin Sheng saw this woman whom he had been so familiar with, he felt as if all his memories had been completely reopened at that moment. Song Ryu was like the fuse that lit up his memories. All the people and things in the past came alive at that moment. He finally remembered everything. He no longer resisted and deliberately avoided it like last night, because he was Qin Sheng in the first place. This woman was Song Ryu, whom he had known since he was a child. She was his fiancée, who he had been waiting for 3 years. Qin Shing didn't expect to see her here. He didn't expect that he would see her first. She must have suffered a lot in these 3 years. Seeing the tears of his beloved woman in front of him, Qin Shing felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. He gently wiped her tears and said guiltily, "I'm sorry." She held Qin Shing's hand tightly and looked at him affectionately. She shook her head hard, as if she was saying that he didn't have to apologize. Qin Shing did not know what to say. He could only pull her into his arms and hug her tightly, wanting to melt her into his body. From today onwards, he would never abandon her again. From today onwards, he would never abandon anyone. He was Qin Shing. He was back. In the bar, the music had already stopped. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. What was going on? Everyone started guessing. The air seemed to freeze, and the atmosphere was so quiet that only the sound of breathing and heartbeat could be heard. They never expected that the lead singer would know this beautiful woman with such a strong aura, and they never expected such a scene to happen. Gradually, anyone could guess that there must be a touching story between them. Otherwise, how could they be so affectionate? Needless to say, this beautiful woman was definitely not an ordinary person. After all, some temperament could not be hidden. So who on earth was this resident singer? Was he really just an ordinary resident singer? Those familiar customers were even less likely to think so. Otherwise, why would there be a fair, rich, and beautiful woman who came to support him every day, and today, there was suddenly such a strong woman with a strong aura? If this resident singer was really just an ordinary person, how could he have interacted with these beautiful women? Everyone was thinking the same thing as Brother Chow, who was in charge of the bar. Brother Chow was stunned. What the hell was going on? Li Xiang, who on earth are you? Are you a rich kid who came here to experience life? Before, Gu Xining came to support you every day. I tolerated it when you said that you didn't know each other. Today, this beautiful woman with such a powerful aura actually came to look for you. I don't even dare to look at such a beautiful woman, but you actually hugged her. I won't believe you even if you beat me to death. You have to give me an explanation. Meeting again in a foreign place, Qin Shing missed her. At this moment, Song Ryu had a lot to say, and Qin Shing also had a lot of questions to ask. Therefore, it was not appropriate to stay here. After Song Ryu calmed down, Qin Shing directly pulled her out of the bar under everyone's gaze. Standing at the door, Brother Chow was stunned. Li Xiang, what do you mean? Qin Shing patted Brother Chow's shoulder gently and said, Brother Chow, I'll explain to you another day. Remember to put my guitar away. Brother Chow wanted to say something, but Qin Shing had already left with Song Ryu. When Song Ryu left, she smiled and nodded to Brother Chow apologetically, which made Brother Chow feel a little awkward. In the end, Brother Chow could only curse a little. Who asked him to meet the wrong person? Now, he could only clean up the mess. Qin Shing met the middle-aged man downstairs. It seemed that the only person who could protect Song Ryu for 3 years was Chang Baji, a close friend who had accompanied him through life and death situations. It had been 3 years since they last met. Qin Shing gave Chang Baji a big hug and said, Lao Chang, it's so good to see you again. Chang Baji was more mature and experienced than before. The current Chang Baji was becoming more and more interesting. The biggest trouble was that he often encountered strange pursuers. This made Chang Baji feel a little helpless. Even many successful divorced women in Siju City took the initiative to ask about Chang Baji. Fortunately, Song Ryu helped Chang Baji to block them. Chang Baji stared at Qin Shing and nodded heavily. Everything was needless to say. Their friendship had gone beyond ordinary feelings. They knew each other better than anyone else. Half an hour later, in the executive suite of the Shangri-La Hotel across the street from the Juyen Bridge Bar, Qin Shing, who had just taken a bath, stood in front of the window in a bathrobe, staring at the bright and beautiful city. Opposite the street was the Juyen Bridge Bar, where he had not stayed for long. Fate was really funny. It played such a joke on him. Maybe life was full of ups and downs. When he was Qin Sheng, he had never thought that he would experience that thing and lose his memory in the end. When he was Li Xiang, he had never thought that an ordinary person like him could have such an extraordinary background. It was like a poor loser suddenly buying a lottery ticket and winning hundreds of millions. What a fantastic story it was! However, the truth was the truth. Li Xiang was just a transition. Qin Sheng was still Qin Sheng. A few minutes later, Song Ruyu came out of the shower and saw Qin Sheng standing in front of the window in a daze. She walked over slowly and hugged Qin Sheng from behind. "What are you thinking about? It's like a dream." Qin Sheng sighed. Song Ruyu leaned on Li Xiang's back and said, "Are you awake now?" Qin Sheng said calmly, "It's time to wake up. If you don't wake up now, you will never wake up again." Song Ruyu said nothing. At this time, Qin Sheng asked, "How did you know that I was in Chengdu, and that I was in this bar?" "Uncle told me," Song Ruyu said honestly. Qin Sheng thought about it. It seemed that Uncle knew a lot. He should ask him later. "How is my father?" Qin Sheng asked after thinking for a while. He had a lot of things to know. Song Ruyu didn't hide it. She said directly, "It's the final procedure. We have held 2 sessions. The verdict should be announced next month. We have fought for the best result. I hope you won't be disappointed." She was right. After all, there were many things that could not be changed no matter how hard the Song family and the Zhu family tried. Many things were destined to happen. Moreover, other people were also taking action. Those opponents were not easy to deal with. It seemed that winning or losing was not important, because everyone had paid a heavy price. Even if the Qin family won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. I can accept all the results. I also know that this is the best result. Qin Sheng could roughly guess. After all, he had already known at the beginning that the worst result would be that, and the best result would not be much better. Hearing Qin Sheng's words, Song Ruyu was relieved. Qin Sheng continued to ask, "How are my grandmother and the old master?" This was what Qin Sheng was most worried about, especially his grandmother. After all, she had been in poor health at that time. Now that 3 years had passed, he didn't know how she was doing. He was most afraid of the worst news. After all, his grandmother had waited for him for more than 20 years. It was not easy for her to come back, but this thing happened. He was afraid that his grandmother could not bear the blow. If something happened to her, he would not be able to forgive himself. Song Ruyu knew that Qin Sheng was going to ask, so she didn't hide it. She said in a low voice, "Nothing. You will know when you see your grandmother." Hearing this news, Qin Sheng was both surprised and disappointed. He was surprised that his grandmother was still alive, and disappointed that her condition was obviously not good. How could he not understand what Song Ruyu meant? Qin Sheng continued to ask, "What about my sister?" Song Ruyu shook her head and smiled bitterly. "Because you disappeared again, it took her a long time to recover. She has been focusing all her energy on work. I don't know what to say. It's all my fault. I made her worry." Qin Sheng blamed himself. Qin Sheng knew that there were many people in this world who cared about him, but the one who loved him the most was definitely his sister. Qin Sheng still had a lot of questions to ask, but he was not in a hurry. Song Ruyu would tell him everything in a moment. At this time, Song Ruyu took the initiative to ask, "When will you go back?" Qin Sheng hesitated for a few seconds and said, "Let's wait for a few more days. When I finish my business." Song Ruyu said subconsciously, "Gu Xining?" Qin Sheng was a little embarrassed when he heard this name. He said awkwardly, "You know everything?" "Uncle," Song Ruyu said honestly. Qin Sheng really wanted to ask, "Uncle, what else do you not know?" He turned around and explained in a hurry, "Don't think too much." "I didn't think too much," Song Ruyu said with a smile. Hearing Qin Sheng's words, she knew what was going on. Song Ruyu was really beautiful when she smiled, which made Qin Shing a little anxious. He stared at Song Ryu, the woman who had been his fiancée for a long time. It was a pity that he had made her wait for so long. "What's wrong?" Song Ryu asked confusedly. Qin Shing said gently, "You are more beautiful." Song Ryu lowered her head in embarrassment. At this time, Qin Shing pinched Song Ryu's beautiful face with his hand. He should not have made such a beautiful fiancée wait for so long. Song Ryu seemed to have guessed something and dared not to look at Qin Shing. Her heart began to beat faster, her breathing gradually became messy, and her cheeks became redder and redder. While she was lost in her thoughts, Qin Shing had already kissed her lips gently. This familiar yet strange feeling directly made Song Ryu fall in love with him. She did not know what to do, nor did she need to know what to do, because Qin Shing would guide her to enjoy this moment. She only needed to cooperate. Chapter 11:22. The best things should be saved for the most appropriate time. Nothing much happened that night. Although Qin Shing hadn't touched a woman for 3 years, he still suppressed all other thoughts with his strong self-control. Moreover, he had just recovered all his memories. He had been asking Song Ryu about what had happened in the past 3 years, so he didn't have much time to think about other things. Qin Shing was not a calm person. He just felt that it was a bit inappropriate for him to be like that when he and Song Ryu had just reunited. Besides, she was his fiancée. These things would happen sooner or later. Moreover, Qin Shing had more important things to think about now. That night, Qin Shing and Song Ryu talked for a long time until Song Ryu fell asleep unconsciously. She snuggled in Qin Shing's arms and held him tightly, like a little woman who had no sense of security. She had been strong enough in the past 3 years. From now on, she didn't have to be so strong anymore. She didn't have to bear those pressures anymore. Because Qin Shing was back. After Song Ryu fell asleep, Qin Shing didn't sleep at all. He didn't know whether he was not used to the life of a single dog in the past 3 years or he was thinking about other things. However, Qin Shing felt comfortable smelling the light fragrance on Song Ryu's body. Moreover, it was a pleasure to hold such a beautiful woman in his arms. However, he was thinking about other things, especially those things about the Qin family. After all, it was the final moment. It was time for him to do some things. Maybe because he slept late last night, when he woke up, it was already past 9 o'clock in the morning. The beauty beside him was already gone. The sun shone on his face. If it weren't for the light fragrance, Qin Shing would have thought that he had really had a dream. At this moment, the door of the room was opened. Song Ryu came in with some things in her hands. Seeing that Qin Shing had woken up, she pursed her lips and smiled. "You're awake? Go wash up. I went out to buy some breakfast." Today, Song Ryu was the happiest she had been in the past 3 years. She had taken off all her masks and revealed her truest and most charming self. When she woke up and saw Qin Shing sleeping soundly beside her, her eyes were full of smiles. She could not help but secretly kiss Qin Shing a few times. Her eyes were full of tenderness. If others saw this domineering female director of the central office at this moment, they would probably be so shocked that their jaws would drop. They did not expect her to have such a feminine side. By the time Song Ryu put the breakfast on the table, Qin Shing had already walked up to her, hugged her from behind and molested her unscrupulously. Song Ryu laughed and said shyly, "Stop it. Go take a shower." After teasing Song Ryu for a while, Qin Shing obediently went to take a bath. More than 10 minutes later, Qin Shing and Song Ryu sat opposite each other and had breakfast unhurriedly. Song Ryu had bought the breakfast in an alley not far from the Shangri-La Hotel. She didn't like the standard breakfast in the hotel. Instead, she preferred to look for food in smoky places when she went to a new city. At this time, Qin Shing asked, "How many days are you going to stay in Chengdu? Are you going to kick me out so soon?" Song Ryu asked deliberately. Hearing this, Qin Shing almost choked. He hurriedly replied, "Ha ha ha ha, I didn't mean that. I just wanted to ask you a question. When did you become so thoughtful?" Song Ryu laughed and said, "I'm just teasing you. I've already applied for the annual leave. I'll stay in Chengdu during this period. After I go back, I might have a new job. But I know you're busy, so you don't have to worry about me during this period. I have a lot of friends here. Maybe they can help you solve the problem as soon as possible." Qin Xing thought it was reasonable. If Song Ryu was here, it might be easier. However, he was afraid that those people knew about Song Ryu. If they followed the clues and found out about her background, it would be a bit troublesome. But thinking about it, with their power, how would they be able to find him? After breakfast, Chang Baji came to find Qin Xing. From him, Qin Xing learned about the situation of those brothers. Not long after Qin Xing's accident, Brother Wu returned to Inner Mongolia to take over. Now he was doing well in Hohhot. After all, he had accumulated so many resources in Siju City. With the support of the Qin family, how could he not do well? Bach had been staying in Beijing, because Mr. Ding had returned to Beijing. Mr. Ding had regained control of the company under the Qin family. In this way, Zhao Anji and Qin Ran did not have to worry anymore. After all, they were really exhausted during that period. Zhao Anji began to live her old life. Other things were taken care of by Qin Changxing. She had completed her task. Therefore, Bach had been staying in Beijing, responsible for protecting Mr. Ding. Of course, he could also learn a lot from Mr. Ding. As for Hao Lei, when the things in the Qin family were almost done, he returned to Shanghai. After all, Han Bing had been in Shanghai all the time. Chang Baji said that Hao Lei and Han Bing had gotten married last year. At the wedding, they were all there. Hao Lei did not intervene in Han Bing's affairs. Xue Qinyan asked him to go to Shangshan Ruoshui. After all, Qin Xing had shares in it. He could continue to work for Qin Xing. Among these people, Hao Lei had known Qin Xing for the longest time. He could be regarded as Qin Xing's real best friend. He had followed Qin Xing for so many years. Naturally, the Qin family would take care of him. Therefore, Hao Lei was not only responsible for Shangshan Ruoshui but also for some things of the Qin family in Shanghai. The big boss of the Qin family in Shanghai had retired behind the scenes. Many things were handed over to Hao Lei. Moreover, with the resources of the Zhu family and Xue Qinyan in Shanghai, Hao Lei could be regarded as a big shot in Shanghai. After coming out of the Shangri-La Hotel, Qin Xing took a taxi back to the bookstore. He was surprised that his aunt did not call him yesterday. Could it be that his aunt already knew about his meeting with Song Ryu? Song Ryu also left the Shangri-La Hotel. She said that she was going to find a sister. If anything happened, she would call Qin Xing. When she left Chang Baji with Qin Xing. Naturally, she was worried about Qin Xing's safety. She did not want what happened last time to happen again. Originally, Qin Xing insisted that Chang Baji protect Song Ryu. However, Song Ryu said that nothing would happen to her in Chengdu, which surprised Qin Xing a little. In the end, Qin Xing could only let Lao Chang follow him again. However, he asked Lao Chang to protect him secretly. He did not want those people to know his new identity. When Qin Xing returned to the bookstore, he did not expect that his aunt was waiting for him there. After greeting Ah Ning, Qin Xing went upstairs to find his aunt. When he saw his aunt, she turned her back to him. He only heard his aunt say directly, "Have you met Ryu?" Qin Xing was stunned for a moment. "Aunt, you know everything? Qin Changxing is in Chengdu. I have met him," his aunt answered truthfully. Qin Xing did not think that his eldest uncle was also in Chengdu. Could it be that everyone already knew that he was back, and he was the only one kept in the dark? It seemed that his aunt guessed what Qin Xing was thinking. She said softly, "At present only Ryu and him know. I went to Beijing last time and met them." Qin Xing nodded and fell silent. After a few seconds, Qin Xing opened his mouth again. Aunt, who on earth are you? Now that Qin Sheng had regained his memory, he naturally wanted to know who his aunt was. After all, he could not remember who she was at all after regaining his memory. However, one thing he could be sure of was that when he had been in Ningbo, it was his aunt who had saved him at the last moment. Otherwise, he really could not remember who she was. At this moment, he saw his aunt turn around slowly and look at him with a light smile. When he saw his aunt, Qin Sheng was completely dumbfounded. This beauty in front of him did not seem to be his aunt. Although this beauty was even more beautiful than his aunt, who was she? After a long time, Qin Sheng asked, "Who are you?" He heard that the beauty said lightly, "I am your aunt." The same voice, but a different look. Qin Sheng did not react for a long time. However, he could tell from the eyes of this beauty in front of him that this seemed to be his aunt. Qin Sheng suddenly remembered who this beauty in front of him was. He said in shock, "It's you." Aunt chuckled and said, "It seems that you remember me. You are my aunt. Did you save me at that time? How could you?" Qin Sheng became more and more confused. What on earth was going on? He heard his aunt said softly, "Don't you know the art of disguise? If I still looked like before, it would be easy for Qin Chongqing to find me. Of course, I had to change my appearance." Qin Sheng did not expect this. He shook his head and sighed bitterly. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. This puzzle was finally solved. He did not want to think so much. Qin Sheng could not help but ask, "Aunt, who on earth are you? Are you really my aunt or the Qin family's guardian family?" Aunt answered truthfully, "My surname is also Qin. I have blood relations with you. Naturally, I am your aunt. However, I am not in the same family as you. My father and your grandfather are cousins. When I was a child, I grew up with your grandfather. My task is to secretly protect the Qin family." "I finally understand." Qin Sheng let out a long sigh. He then asked, "Aunt, what is your name?" Aunt was lost in thought. It seemed that most people had forgotten what her name was. She hesitated for a long time and slowly replied, "Qin Chongqing." Upon hearing this name, Qin Sheng could confirm that this was indeed his aunt, who was of the same generation as his big uncle and his father. However, she was younger than his big uncle and his father. Perhaps his aunt took good care of herself, or she had some special skills to preserve her looks. When Qin Sheng walked out of the bookstore, he was still a little confused. He suddenly thought of a terrible possibility. Was this really his aunt's original appearance? Seeing that Qin Sheng was in a daze, Ning asked curiously, "Brother Li Xiang, what are you thinking about?" Qin Sheng was stunned for a few seconds. Then he remembered that Ning was calling him. He almost forgot that he was Li Xiang. When Li Xiang walked out of the bookstore, Gu Xining was already waiting for him in a Ferrari. Today, Li Xiang wanted to meet Gu Xining's mother and uncle. Then he wanted to have a good talk with Gu Xining's uncle. Chapter 11:23. If he hadn't met Gu Xining, he would have gone back to the capital city directly after meeting Song Ruyu. After all, there were still many things to deal with in Siju City, and many people were waiting for him. However, since he had met Gu Xining and was involved in so many things, he could only help Gu Xining solve this problem. What's more, he was Qin Sheng now, not Li Xiang. For Li Xiang, these things might be difficult, but for Qin Sheng they might not be difficult. After all, Gu Xining's uncle was only supported by Master Ma. But what was Qin Sheng's status and background? When Qin Sheng walked up to Gu Xining, he looked at the Ferrari with great interest and said, "Let me drive it." Gu Xining did not think much about it and directly threw the car key to Qin Sheng. Now, Qin Sheng had completely remembered everything in the past. He started the Ferrari skillfully and rushed out while Gu Xining screamed. Qin Sheng suddenly had the feeling of racing. It was a pity that such a sports car could not display its full potential in the city. When he returned to Beijing, He must find a sports car and go to a professional track to have a good time. Although Qin Sheng could not give full play to the Ferrari's performance in the city, he still drove the Ferrari through the traffic flow under the condition that he did not exceed the speed limit or violate the law. He could be said to be skillful and at ease. The last time they went to Mount Qinqing, Gu Xining thought that Li Xiang was a very stable driver. Why did he suddenly change his style and become so reckless today? The pitiful Gu Xining had no choice but to hold on tight. She kept screaming along the way. When they arrived at the destination, Gu Xining almost threw up when she got out of the car. She complained, "Li Xiang, are you crazy?" Qin Sheng took a bottle of water and handed it to Gu Xining. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "I'm sorry. I was too engrossed in the game and forgot your feelings." Gu Xining glared at Qin Sheng but did not say anything. She only regained her composure after drinking a few mouthfuls of water. After tidying up her clothes, she dragged Qin Sheng into the company building. This was the financial CBD of the Tianfu New District, surrounded by newly built skyscrapers. It was next to Tianfu Avenue and looked very prosperous. There was a joke in Chengdu that if there were no restrictions, Tianfu Avenue could extend all the way to the South China Sea. How big was Chengdu's ambition? If it was in the past, it would be really troublesome for Qin Sheng to find out what the Gu family did. But now that his identity was different, it was very easy for him to find out what the Gu family did. In the morning, he had asked Chang Baji to investigate. It turned out that the Gu family mainly dealt in tourism and real estate and financial investments. These few years they had been working hard in South Sichuan. That was why they had more contact with Godfather Ma. Before Godfather Ma entered Chengdu, he had been hanging around in South Sichuan. Although Gu Jiani was pressuring her, Gu Xining's mother hadn't given up yet. As the biggest shareholder, she had been working in the company, but Gu Jiani hadn't come to work recently. In addition to Gu Xining's mother, Gu Xining's uncle, who had been working in Shanghai, also came back to help. He was a senior executive of a multinational company in Shanghai and had some connections. How could he not care about what had happened to his sister? From the moment they walked into the company, Gu Xining had been holding Qin Sheng's arm tightly. It seemed that she was not afraid at all. She wanted to let others know about her relationship with Qin Sheng. It could be considered as a show for her uncle. In the chairman's office on the top floor, after Xining's father passed away, her mother took over this position. In the past, her mother was only a full-time wife. Now, in order to defend the control of the company, she had to do this. However, her mother used to be the financial director of the company, so she was quite familiar with the management of the company. When Qin Sheng and Gu Xining came in, Gu Xining's mother and uncle were already waiting for them. Seeing Qin Sheng and Gu Xining come in, Min Shu smiled and stood up. "You're finally here. Why are you so slow? Your uncle and I have been waiting for more than half an hour." Gu Xining walked quickly to her mother, held her arm and said, "Mom, I had something to do. That's why I was delayed." At this time, Qin Sheng smiled and greeted Min Shu, calling her aunt. When he looked at Gu Xining's uncle, he just nodded slightly. Gu Xining's uncle was called Min Feng. He had a bachelor's degree from Sichuan University and a master's degree from Fudan University. After graduation, he stayed in Shanghai and was now the vice president of a multinational company in Greater China. When he saw Qin Sheng, he suddenly felt a little lost, as if he had seen Qin Sheng somewhere before. Min Feng stared at Qin Sheng for a while and said, "Are you Li Xiang?" Qin Sheng nodded slightly. He was Li Xiang, but also Qin Sheng. Min Feng frowned and said, "Why do I feel that I have seen you somewhere before?" Hearing that Gu Xining's uncle had been in Shanghai, Qin Sheng couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Could it be that Min Feng had really seen him in Shanghai before? At this time, Min Shu smiled and said, "Feng, do you feel a little familiar?" "Sister, indeed, I feel that I have seen him before, Min Feng said honestly. Min Shu said, "Don't you think that Li Xiang looks a lot like your brother-in-law?" After hearing this, Min Feng suddenly realized that they did look a little alike, especially between the eyebrows. He said in surprise, "No wonder. I was wondering why they looked so alike." Everyone laughed at the same time. It could only be said that Li Xiang and the Gu family were destined to be together. Min Shu, Gu Xining's mother, didn't have much opinion about Li Xiang, and she didn't despise Li Xiang because of her family background. She thought it was enough as long as her daughter liked Li Xiang, and she could tell that her daughter liked Li Xiang very much. However, Min Feng, Gu Xining's uncle, didn't think so. He had heard about Li Xiang's family background from his sister, and he always felt that Li Xiang was not good enough for his niece, no matter in age or family background. He thought that his niece was so outstanding that she must marry into a big family, so that she could be happy. No matter who had this idea, it was actually for Gu Xining's sake. After Li Xiang sat down, Min Shu asked, "Li Xiang, why did you want to see me today? Is there anything important?" Qin Xing said slowly, "Auntie, I want to know about the matter with Gu Jiani. What do you think now?" Qin Xing directly called Gu Xining's uncle by his name. Min Shu was a little surprised. She didn't expect that Li Xiang would ask this directly. She frowned and said, "Li Xiang, why do you ask this?" Qin Xing said honestly, "I want to see if I can help." Hearing this, Min Feng sneered and said, "Help? What can you do? Is this something that you can help with? I'm not looking down on you, it's just that these things are too far away from you, young man." Qin Xing did not think much about it. What Min Feng said was the truth. If he was just Li Xiang, this matter was indeed too far away from him, and he could not do anything about it at all. However, he was Qin Xing now. Gu Xining didn't expect that Li Xiang was looking for her mother because of this. She stared at Li Xiang curiously. "Min Shu's goodwill," he said. "Li Xiang, you don't have to worry about these things. It's not something you can handle. I'm afraid of getting you involved. I heard from Cici that Gu Jiani also came to you, so you have to be careful." "Auntie, I know about these things. I just want to ask you, what should we do?" Qin Xing continued to ask. Min Shu sighed helplessly and said, "What can we do? Gu Jiani is too aggressive. We are no match for him. Even if Xiaofeng comes back to help, it will be useless. His background is too strong, we can only bow our heads. Auntie, I know some people who may be able to help you change the situation, but I hope you can hold on," Qin Xing continued to say. Min Feng was amused and said, "Li Xiang, do you think this is a child's play? You're just a singer in a bar. Even if you know some people, how powerful can you be? I know you're doing this for Cici, but don't be too arrogant and get yourself into trouble in the end." Qin Xing didn't want to explain too much nonsense, and he had no time to explain these things. "Auntie, I want to confirm one more thing. Is Uncle really killed by Gu Jiani?" Qin Xing asked firmly. Min Shu was stunned when she heard this question. She hesitated for a long time and said, "I'm not sure. Sister, if it wasn't him, who else could it be?" Min Feng said. He hated this matter so much that he gnashed his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. Qin Xing didn't say anything at this time. He knew that the Gu family wouldn't believe him. No one would believe him. He just needed to solve this problem at the end. When Qin Xing and Gu Xining walked out of the company, Gu Xining couldn't wait to say, "Li Xiang, don't worry about this. I'm afraid that my uncle will harm you." "Harm me?" Qin Xing laughed and said, "Maybe in the past, but now I should be afraid of him." Gu Xining was confused when she heard this. She thought that Li Xiang was really crazy. "I'm going to find your uncle." What Qin Xing said next directly made Gu Xining completely stunned. Gu Xining was stunned. She really didn't know what was wrong with Li Xiang. After Qin Xing and Gu Xining left, in the chairman's office on the top floor, Min Shu and her brother were talking about Gu Xining and Qin Xing. Min Feng said directly, Sister, you really don't care about this matter and let Cece mess around? Minshu laughed and said, Why is she messing around? Sister, what's Li Xiang's status? What's Cece's status? Does she deserve him? Even if Cece wants to find a boyfriend or marry someone, she should find someone who matches her status, Min Feng said impatiently. Min Shu asked back, What status? A relative of the emperor? Besides, it's just a relationship. Since she likes Li Xiang, let her be. As long as she is happy, I will support her. As for her future marriage, I won't interfere. Anyway, as long as she is willing, I will support her. Sister, why are you so muddle-headed? Min Feng said helplessly. At this time, Min Shu suddenly said in a low voice, Feng, your brother-in-law is gone. I only have Cece left. I just want her to be happy. As for what you said, I don't care. At this time, Min Feng seemed to understand that he and his sister stood on different sides. His sister stood on the side of a mother, just when Qin Shing went to find Gu Jiani. In a manor at the foot of Mount Qinqing, Song Ruyu was chatting with an elegant elder sister, who had been a legend in Siju City in the past. Later, she married and moved to Chengdu. Now, she was the mother of 2 children. Chapter 11:24. Mount Qinqing was not only a summer resort in Chengdu, but also its backyard. Its environment and climate were very pleasant. Therefore, many tycoons liked to live here after they retired. Though the manor where Song Ruyu lived was neither the largest nor the one with the best scenery in Mount Qinqing, it was the most mysterious one. Outsiders were forbidden to enter the manor. A few hundred meters away from the core of the manor had been surrounded by bodyguards, who patrolled the place 24 hours a day, and all kinds of high-tech monitoring devices were everywhere. From the outermost gate to the front gate of the manor, one had to go through 3 security checkpoints. It was obvious how strict the security was. However, Song Ruyu didn't go through any security check today. Instead, the hostess of the manor greeted her at the outermost gate in person. After all, Song Ruyu was the only woman in the manor. The manor was divided into several areas. The hostess sat in the center area. At this time, Song Ruyu was sitting in the living room, drinking tea and chatting with the hostess. Through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room, they could see the whole Mount Qinqing. The sunlight fell through the leaves, which was very familiar. It was like returning to nature. In fact, when the manor was designed, the designer's idea was to return to nature. Therefore, the manor was integrated with Mount Qinqing in every aspect. Song Ruyu, the elder sister with an outstanding temperament, was not an ordinary person. Even when she had been in Siju City, she had been a popular figure. Countless men had pursued her relentlessly. However, no one had expected that she would eventually marry to Chengdu. Of course, the man she had married was not an ordinary person either. Although her brother-in-law, whom she had only met several times, had retired and lived an ordinary life, he used to be a powerful figure in the underground world of Chuanyu. Many people respectfully called him Master Zhao. Why did you suddenly come to Chengdu? The woman asked with a smile. Song Ruyu said casually, I had some trivial matters to deal with. I happened to be on my annual leave, so I came to Chengdu to relax. I haven't seen you for a long time. You're a famous career woman now. I heard that you're going to make progress. You're really amazing, the woman said half-jokingly. Song Ruyu was a little embarrassed. Sister, where did you hear this? I'm not sure. If you had stayed in Beijing, I would have been no match for you. I don't have that kind of life. It's more suitable for me to be a good wife and raise my children, the woman said with a smile. Like Song Ruyu, she had once chosen to be a good wife, but she had given up in the end. However, her current life was quite good. Song Ruyu didn't say much. She just changed the topic and asked, Isn't brother-in-law in Chengdu? The woman poured some tea for Song Ruyu and said, He's not in Chengdu. He went to his hometown in Qinghai with his children. He'll be back the day after tomorrow. Then I'll treat my sister and brother-in-law to a meal at that time. I happen to need brother-in-law's help with something." Teacup chuckled. The woman was a little confused and said, "What's the matter? Can't he just tell me?" "Sister, I don't want to bother you with this. Brother-in-law is more useful," Song Ryu said honestly. The woman roughly guessed what was going on. She shook her head and said, "Okay, I won't ask any more. You can tell him directly when the time comes." Although her husband had long stopped managing things, and she was fully responsible for his company, in some aspects, his words were more useful than anyone else's. Maybe it was those things. The woman had never asked about the young master of the Qin family. Of course, she knew about the marriage between the Qin family and the Song family. She also knew about the engagement between Song Ryu and the young master of the Qin family. However, the young master of the Qin family suddenly disappeared, and there was no news of him until now. It was somewhat a pity. Song Ryu didn't leave the manor. Recently, she had been living in the manor. However, she didn't want to disturb her sister's life. After all, she still had work to do. After all, she was the helmsman of the largest private enterprise in Sichuan. The new landmark buildings in Chengdu were all built by her sister. Sometimes, she envied her brother-in-law, who didn't need to worry about anything. His wife was responsible for everything, and he became a hands-off boss who only cared about enjoying life every day. Maybe only a successful man could be like this. Therefore, Song Ryu had long turned a blind eye to some things. She was not as generous as her sister, but she was not as stingy either. Otherwise, when she knew that Lin Su, who was far away in the United States, had already given birth to Qin Sheng's child, she might have directly broken down. Moreover, Lin Su was not Qin Sheng's only woman. Thinking of this, Song Ryu felt somewhat uncomfortable and couldn't help but mutter a few words. At this moment, Qin Sheng, who was on his way to Lushan International Community, inexplicably spray-painted a few times. He muttered, "Who's scolding me?" At this time, Gu Xining was absent-minded. She said again, "Li Xiang, are you really going to find my uncle? We're almost at the door. Do you think it's fake?" Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Of course, he knew what Gu Xining was worried about. He had to comfort her. "In a while you wait outside. I'll go in directly. If I don't come out within an hour, you can directly call the police. How about that?" Gu Xining wouldn't let Li Xiang take the risk alone. She insisted, "No, I have to go in with you." Qin Sheng found it funny and said, "It's useless for you to go in. You will also delay things. Don't worry. I'm just going to have a good talk with your uncle. Don't think too much." Gu Xining was still dubious. She had a feeling that Qin Sheng might be crazy today. Qin Sheng tried hard to explain again and again. Finally, Gu Xining believed that he was not crazy and that he really wanted to talk to her uncle. 10 minutes later, Gu Xining and Qin Sheng arrived at the door of Gu Jinny's villa. This was Lushan International. It was the most expensive villa area in the community. The starting price of the cheapest villa was a small target. Gu Jinny's villa was worth 2 small targets. It could be seen how rich the Gu family was. Qin Sheng didn't let Gu Xining get out of the car. Instead, he got out of the car alone and walked into the villa. Gu Xining had already told her uncle that she and Li Xiang were coming, so no one stopped Li Xiang. They just went through a simple security check. When Qin Sheng was taken into the villa, Gu Jinny was listening to the symphony in the living room. This surprised Qin Sheng a little. He didn't know whether this boss really liked music or was pretending to be elegant. At this time, Gu Jinny saw him, but he didn't see Gu Xining. Gu Jinny frowned and said, "Why is it only you? Where's Cece?" Qin Sheng said honestly, "I wanted to see you. I just used her as an excuse. Otherwise, you wouldn't have met me." Gu Jinny heard Li Xiang's words and thought about it. He didn't expect that Li Xiang would take the initiative to come to him. He hadn't made trouble for Li Xiang yet, but Li Xiang took the initiative to come to him. "Oh, then why are you looking for me? I'm a little busy. If you have something to say, just say it." Gu Jianyi sat on the sofa casually and said with some disdain. In his eyes, Li Xiang was not qualified to sit in front of him. Qin Xing sat directly in front of Gu Jianyi in a very domineering manner. He even picked up an apple and ate it. He said, "Uncle Gu, sometimes you have to be conscientious. They are your sister-in-law and niece. Is it fun to be so aggressive?" Hearing this, Gu Jianyi's face changed instantly. He directly stared at Li Xiang and said, "Li Xiang, you are seeking death." Qin Xing laughed and said, "Uncle Gu, only you are allowed to do it. Others are not allowed to say it. These are all done by you. How can you deny it?" "Li Xiang, who on earth are you? Who gave you the courage to be so arrogant in front of me?" Gu Jianyi was a little annoyed. Qin Xing shook his head and said, "Uncle Gu, I don't have any identity. I'm just me. If you really think that I have an identity, you can investigate it. Anyway, didn't you test me?" "Sure enough, you did it." Gu Jianyi frowned and said. Qin Xing didn't understand what was going on. He was too lazy to think about it. He just said, "Uncle Gu, don't be too greedy. What you have today is all thanks to your brother. Your brother has passed away now, but you forced your sister-in-law and niece to sell their shares. This is not how you should be. Li Xiang, aren't you afraid of death?" Gu Jianyi had restrained himself enough. He didn't expect that Li Xiang would dare to say these words. Qin Xing was very disdainful as he bit the apple and said, "Of course I am. Who is not afraid of death? I have also died several times. It's just that I am lucky. Oh, it seems that Uncle Gu wants my life. That's right. Uncle Gu is so powerful that you can take my life easily. Besides, you even dare to kill your own brother. What is there that you don't dare to do?" After Qin Xing finished this sentence, Gu Jianyi was already trembling with anger. His eyes could kill Qin Xing in seconds. He suddenly stood up and shouted directly, "Take him down for me." Chapter 11:25. As long as one was angered, this person would reveal his flaws. At this moment, Qin Xing wanted to anger Gu Jianyi so that Gu Jianyi could give him a chance. Besides, Gu Jianyi dared to threaten him last time, but at that time he was Li Xiang and did not dare to fall out with Gu Jianyi. But today he was Qin Xing. What was there to be afraid of? Regarding the cause of his brother's death, this was Gu Jianyi's sore spot. Qin Xing was rubbing salt on his wound. Whether his brother died in his hands or not, only he himself knew. Even if the outside world said that he killed his brother, Gu Jianyi was too lazy to explain anything. However, until now, no one dared to say this to his face. This young man in front of him was the first one. How could Gu Jianyi not be angry? This was Gu Jianyi's villa. As soon as he gave the order, several bodyguards rushed out and surrounded Qin Xing. It seemed that as long as Gu Jianyi nodded, these people would rush up and tear Qin Xing into pieces in an instant. Qin Xing was not moved. He smiled and said, "Uncle Gu, what do you mean? You want to fight because of a disagreement? You can do it but I can't? Li Xiang, don't challenge my bottom line. Even if you are Cici's boyfriend, I will make you pay." Gu Jianyi stared at Qin Xing and said angrily. Qin Xing looked at these 3 or 4 bodyguards and did not take them seriously at all. Gu Jianyi was not a super big shot who had some peerless masters protecting him. He was just a slightly rich tycoon. Even if he had bodyguards, it would not be a big deal. After all, the Gu family was not a big family that had lasted for 2 or 3 generations. Otherwise, why would Gu Jianyi need to rely on the young godfather Ma? So Qin Xing said disapprovingly, "How to pay? Just based on them?" Before he finished his words, Qin Xing did not give Gu Jianyi any chance to ease the atmosphere. He directly rushed to the bodyguard on the left. Qin Shing's speed was very fast. He did not give the bodyguard any chance to react at all. Even a lion would use all its strength to catch a rabbit. What he needed was this kind of deterrence. Therefore, before the bodyguard could react, he had already been kicked in the chest by Qin Shing and was sent flying. This scene was really shocking and very visually impactful. Gu Jianyi was stunned. He did not expect Qin Shing to take the initiative. The other 3 bodyguards were also shocked, but at this time, Qin Shing had already rushed to the bodyguard next door. The bodyguard reacted in a hurry and was ready to fight back, but his arm was directly grabbed by Qin Shing. Qin Shing conveniently threw the bodyguard over his shoulder and smashed him to the ground. Even the floor tiles were smashed. It could be seen how strong Qin Shing was. Li Xiang might have scruples when he did things, but Qin Shing did not need to. He was ready to deal with the other 2 bodyguards in one go, but the 2 bodyguards had already subconsciously retreated. At this moment, Gu Jianyi suddenly shouted, "Who the hell are you?" The 2 bodyguards who were about to make a move also stopped because of Gu Jianyi's words. They could only stare at Qin Shing angrily but did not dare to say anything. Qin Shing came to his senses and looked at Gu Jianyi. "Uncle Gu, I'm Li Xiang, Gu Xining's boyfriend. Aren't you going to take me down? What do you want?" How could Gu Jianyi accept that? He continued to ask. Qin Shing laughed and said, "I don't want anything. I just want justice for Gu Xining." Li Xiang, don't be too arrogant. Gu Jianyi was also a big boss. He did not expect that he would be suppressed by a young man, which made him very angry, really angry. Qin Shing stared at Gu Jianyi arrogantly and said, "What can you do? Kill me? Ha 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 ha, I'll wait." After saying that, Qin Shing was ready to turn around and leave. Today, he came to declare war on Gu Jianyi. He did not want this matter to drag on for too long. After all, he had more important things to do, and he could not stay in Chengdu for long. "Li Xiang," Gu Jianyi scolded. Qin Shing sneered and said, "What? You want to keep me? With just a few of you? Not enough, far from enough." After saying that, Qin Shing ignored Gu Jianyi and continued to walk forward. The 2 bodyguards did not dare to stop Qin Shing at all. After all, they knew that they were no match for Qin Shing. Besides, the big boss did not ask them to stop Qin Shing. Why should they ask for trouble? After all, the 2 brothers were a lesson. Therefore, Qin Shing left just like that. Gu Jianyi, who was so angry that he was about to vomit blood, stayed where he was. Gu Jianyi did not say anything. He did not want to say anything. He must regain his face today. Gu Jianyi turned around and walked directly into the study. Then he took out his mobile phone and dialed that number. After the phone was connected, Gu Jianyi did not have time to say hello. He said directly, "I want the young man named Li Xiang's life, at any cost." There was a long silence on the other side. He did not say anything and directly hung up the phone. On the road outside the villa, Gu Xining sat in the Ferrari absent-mindedly. She looked at the direction of the villa every few seconds. She was afraid that Li Xiang would have an accident here. After all, her uncle was not an ordinary person. In this way, Gu Xining waited for 20 minutes. It was so long that she was about to go crazy. To be honest, she really did not want Li Xiang to get involved in her family's affairs. However, Li Xiang insisted on taking care of this matter. She had no way to persuade him. Although she knew that Li Xiang did not have this ability, she did not know why she had an inexplicable sense of trust in him. Just when Li Xiang went into the villa, her mother also called him. She also hoped that Li Xiang would not get involved in this matter. They would handle it well. She only hoped that Li Xiang would be in a good relationship with her. At this time, Gu Xining finally saw Li Xiang coming out of the car. She hurriedly got out of the car and ran to him. "Li Xiang, are you okay?" Seeing that Gu Xining cared about him so much, Qin Shing was more or less touched. After all, this kind of woman should be loved. It was a pity that she met him. What can happen to me? I just chatted with my uncle for a while, and we had a good time, Qin Shing said casually. Gu Xining looked confused. She stared at Qin Shing with her big watery eyes, as if saying, "Do you think I will believe you?" Qin Shing hurriedly pulled Gu Xining and said, "All right, don't think too much. Let's go. It's so hot outside. Let's go back first." Gu Xining got in the car doubtfully. She wondered what Li Xiang and her uncle had talked about on Earth. On the way back, Qin Shing still drove. He had nothing to do at this time, and it was so hot outside. Gu Xining wanted to go home and change clothes. She was going to attend a business dinner in the evening. Qin Shing accompanied her home first. Because Gu Xining did not know that he had resigned from the bar, Li Xiang planned to find time to meet Song Ryu secretly. After all, she was his fiancée. On the way home, Qin Shing said deliberately, "Cece, I've been dreaming a lot recently. I've been dreaming a lot lately, and I always think of some strange things." "What do you mean? Are you remembering those things in the past?" Gu Xining asked eagerly. Qin Shing played dumb and said, "Maybe. After all, I lost my memory. Maybe those things really happened in the past." Gu Xining asked curiously, "What are they? Tell me." Qin Shing did not continue the topic. Instead, he murmured to himself, "Cece, if I remember those things in the past one day, if I have a wife and children, if I have to leave Chengdu, will you be sad?" Qin Shing's question directly made Gu Xining speechless. At Li Xiang's age, if he really lost his memory, it was normal for him to have a wife and children. If he really remembered those things in the past, he would definitely return to his previous life. What about her? Gu Xining had not thought about these things. "In fact, I'm also very curious about what kind of person you were in the past and what kind of life you had," Gu Xining said lightly. "If you really have a wife and children, I'll be your mistress. Will you be happy to have such a beautiful woman as your mistress?" Qin Shing was somewhat surprised by this sentence. He laughed and said, "Stop it. Even if you dare to be my mistress, I dare not accept you." At this time, Gu Xining was silent. She asked slowly, "If that day really comes, what do you want me to do?" Because Gu Xining found that she had been deliberately fooling around at the beginning. She wanted to find something to kill time and divert her attention. But now she seemed to like Li Xiang unconsciously. Qin Shing thought for a moment and said, "I want you to return to your original life." This was Qin Shing's most sincere thought. When he was Li Xiang, he kind of liked Gu Xining. Who wouldn't like such a beautiful woman? However, he was already Qin Shing now. These thoughts had to be cut off in the bud. Otherwise, it would be Gu Xining who would be sad in the end. When Gu Xining heard Li Xiang's words, she was completely silent. On the way, Gu Xining did not speak. She had been staring out of the window in a daze. Qin Shing did not know what she was thinking about. When they arrived at the gate of the community where Gu Xining lived, Qin Shing directly left after saying hello. He had originally wanted to talk with Gu Xining about other things. Seeing that Gu Xining seemed to be in a bad mood, he gave up. It was already afternoon. Qin Shing took a taxi alone and was ready to go back to the bookstore. Although he knew that Lao Chang was following him, Lao Chang also said that someone was following them. Qin Shing did not know who it was, so he did not want to expose Lao Chang. On the way back to the bookstore, Qin Shing was ready to contact Song Ryu. He did not know where Song Ryu was at this time. Since Song Ryu had come to Chengdu, Qin Shing had to accompany his fiancée to go shopping. This was also his duty. As for those who were following him, it was very easy for him to get rid of those who were following him in such a big city. He did not have a GPS with him. However, before Qin Shing had time to contact Song Ryu, the boss of Jinzhou called Qin Shing. The boss of Jinzhou called Qin Shing, which made Qin Shing feel a little surprised. Could it be that there was news from that side? It should not be so fast, right? After Qin Shing answered the phone. As expected, Master Chen wanted to see him. Qin Shing felt it was interesting. Chapter 11:26. Qin Shing felt that Chengdu was quite interesting. There were too many exchanges of benefits and schemes in such a big city. How could Master Zhao monopolize it? More importantly, this Master Zhao was not only very powerful in Chengdu, but also in Sichuan and Chongqing. These big shots in Sichuan and Chongqing all followed him. However, Qin Shing thought about it later, and felt that this Master Zhao was quite intelligent because he knew how to weigh the pros and cons. Why? Because he retired when he was in the limelight, especially when he was so smart at such a young age. How could people not admire him? By doing this, not only could he ensure his benefits, he could also not be so high profile. After all, a tall tree attracts the wind and the bird that stands out will be shot. Moreover, Sichuan and Chongqing were very chaotic back then and many people paid attention to it. At the same time, he held great power behind the scenes. Qin Shing didn't know if these big shots in Sichuan and Chongqing still listened to Master Zhao, but he was sure that Master Zhao's words at least had some weight. These big shots definitely wouldn't dare to mess around, they all had their own line. In this way, not only did they ensure their benefits, but they also set rules and bottom lines. Most importantly, they could satisfy some big shot. After all, stability was more important than anything else. As for this Master Chen today, he was definitely a trusted person since he was placed in Chengdu by Master Zhao. Qin Shing crossed the golden pillar and saw Yu Kai. After crossing Yu Kai, he wanted to see this Master Chen. He wanted to know who was more powerful between this Master Chen and the Master Ma behind Gujiani. Qin Shing had just returned to the entrance of the bookstore when he saw an expensive Bentley parked in front of the bookstore. However, the people in the car didn't get out. They just waited quietly in the car for Qin Shing. Ning had been sitting at the door of the bookstore, staring at these people carefully. She didn't know what these people wanted to do, but she knew that these people must have come to find Brother Li Xiang. Brother Li Xiang had been in contact with some shady people recently. She really didn't know what her aunt was thinking. She didn't control Brother Li Xiang well. Before Qin Shing got close, Yu Kai got out of the car. Li Xiang, I'm here to pick you up. Master Chen is already waiting for you. Qin Shing didn't say anything. He gestured for him to go over and say hello to Ning before coming over. Yu Kai nodded in agreement and then got in the car to wait for Qin Shing. Qin Shing walked to Ning and said, "Don't worry. Nobody can bully your brother Li Xiang now. Aunt knows what I'm doing, so don't worry. Go home early." Ning pouted and did not say anything. She could only tell Qin Shing to be careful. After Qin Shing got in the car, Yu Kai took him directly to the place where Master Chen was. Qin Shing teased, "It's really different to be a boss. He can even drive a Bentley. I'm really envious. When can I drive such a luxury car?" At that time, the girl in the passenger seat will change every day. "Li Xiang, we are doing proper business. It's not as bad as you think. However, if you follow Master Chen, luxurious cars, mansions, and beautiful women are nothing. You can have whatever you want," Yu Kai said cynically. When Master Chen had decided to see Li Xiang, his attitude toward Li Xiang had changed. At least before Master Chen had seen Li Xiang, he would be very polite to Li Xiang. After all, if Li Xiang followed Master Chen, who knew what level he would reach in the future? Having an ally was more important than anything. Moreover, he was the one who introduced Li Xiang to Master Chen. However, Yu Kai was a little confused. He had told Master Chen about Li Xiang's situation, but Master Chen still wanted to see Li Xiang. This was interesting. Qin Shing did not take these things seriously. In the past, Li Xiang did not care about these things. He only thought about them occasionally. Now he did not need these things, because what he had was beyond Yu Kai's imagination. "Thanks to you. I didn't expect you to be so important to Master Chen. It's only been a short time, and Master Chen wants to see me, Qin Sheng said half-jokingly. Yu Kai laughed and said, I've been following Master Chen for several years. If I don't have this ability, then you're looking down on me. But the most important thing is not me, but Master Chen loves talents. You have this ability, so Master Chen is naturally willing to be your scout. However, whether you can follow Master Chen or not, we'll talk about it after seeing him. Qin Sheng smiled and nodded. Of course I know. But no matter what, I'll remember your kindness. Don't be so polite, Yu Kai said casually. If Li Xiang could really follow Master Chen, Li Xiang would naturally take him seriously in the future. If Master Chen did not like Li Xiang's kindness was nothing to him. Was it worth 2 cents? Yu Kai was so realistic. Who asked this world to be so realistic? On the way, Yu Kai originally wanted to get close to Qin Sheng. The most important thing was to know more about Qin Sheng. However, Qin Sheng did not give him any chance at all. He just brushed him off casually. After all, he had nothing to talk to Yu Kai. He could only talk to people like Master Chen. In the end, Yu Kai gave up. He did not think that Qin Sheng was too arrogant. Maybe he thought that all powerful people were like this. The place Yu Kai wanted to take Qin Sheng to was a private clubhouse near Dufu Cottage. Frankly speaking, it was a place where Master Chen entertained his friends. Usually, it was not open to the public. Only Master Chen's friends and a few trusted subordinates were qualified to come here. The private clubhouse was close to the lakeside of Huaxi Park. There was no special signboard at the entrance. There were only a few security guards standing guard 24 hours a day at the entrance of the private clubhouse, forbidding tourists or other people from entering. When Yu Kai's Bentley drove in, they naturally let him in. After all, they all knew Yu Kai. The Bentley drove all the way to the building of the private clubhouse. Yu Kai and Qin Sheng got out at the same time. After getting out of the car, Yu Kai smiled and said, "This is it." The private clubhouse was decorated very luxuriously. The antique style blended in with the rest of the buildings in the park. However, Qin Sheng had been to too many high-end occasions. This kind of place was nothing special. There was nothing to be surprised about. Seeing that Li Xiang was so calm, Yu Kai could not help but admire Li Xiang. He was indeed experienced. There was already a manager waiting for them at the entrance. He took them to a private room on the second floor near the lake. The name of the private room was Du Fu Cottage. 2 seemingly ordinary men stood at the door. However, from their eyes and aura, one could tell that they were definitely not ordinary people. They directly blocked Qin Sheng and Yu Kai's way and wanted to search Qin Sheng at the same time. Yu Kai smiled and said, "It's the rule." Qin Sheng did not refuse and let nature take its course. After the search, Qin Sheng was ready to go in. At this time Yu Kai said, "I won't go in. You can chat with Master Chen. I'll wait for you outside." Qin Sheng thought about it and did not have stage fright. This kind of small scene was not enough to make him nervous. He smiled, turned around and directly pushed the door open. When he pushed open the textured pure copper door of the private room, he only saw a man in a short-sleeved shirt and glasses sitting in the huge private room. The private room could be said to be magnificent. One could overlook the entire lake of Huaxi Park. However, this man, whose age could not be seen, was not in the mood to pay attention to this at the moment. He lowered his head and was eating. The table in the private room was very big. However, at this moment there was only one man. In front of the man were 4 dishes with different tastes. The meat and vegetables were very suitable. However, it did not look like Sichuan cuisine. It was more like Shandong cuisine. He held a bowl of rice and ate slowly. He did not even raise his head. When Qin Sheng came in, he just said in a light tone, "Sit." Qin Sheng did not stand on ceremony. He sat directly in front of the man and looked at him across the table. He just stared at the man eating. Anyway, as long as he did not feel restrained, it would be others who felt restrained. Have you eaten? If not, let the waiter get the menu. Maybe because he felt Qin Shing's gaze, the man thought that Qin Shing had not eaten, so he asked politely. Qin Shing said lightly, yes. The man did not say anything and just lowered his head to continue eating. Qin Shing looked at the man in front of him with interest. He was the Master Chen that Yu Kai and many people talked about. After observing for a few seconds, he found that this Master Chen was quite young, about 35 or 36 years old. He heard that Master Ma was also quite young. It seemed that they were of the same generation, but he did not know who was more powerful. I heard that you offended Gu Jiani. At this time, Master Chen was finally full. He put down the bowl in his hand and looked at Qin Shing. He was indeed very young and took good care of himself. He had a very strong aura. It was a pity that he could not suppress Qin Shing today. It seems that Master Chen knows everything. Qin Shing shook his head and said. Master Chen said seriously, I also know that you offended Gu Jiani. Old Ma wants to kill you now. Aren't you afraid? Qin Shing did not expect that it would be so fast. It seemed that he had really offended Gu Jiani today, so that Master Ma, who was behind Gu Jiani, took action. However, Qin Shing did not care. He said disapprovingly, afraid? Why not? I am here to see Master Chen. I understand. You tried so hard to see me so that I could protect you? Master Chen suddenly laughed. He could not help but feel that the young man in front of him was very interesting and a little mysterious, because since the beginning when he saw him, he seemed to not feel nervous or pressured. He had been very relaxed and casual. If he had not seen the world, he would not have been like this. Qin Shing laughed and said, You can say that. Master Chen, just take it as that. Master Chen slowly stood up and lit a cigarette. Then how do you know that I will protect you? After all, it is the first time we meet. Moreover, although I have some conflicts with old Ma, we have been brothers for so many years. How could I offend old Ma because of you? When Qin Shing heard Master Chen say that although he had some conflicts with old Ma, he suddenly understood a lot of things. This also explained why Master Chen still chose to see him even after knowing everything. That was, the conflict between Master Chen and Master Ma was not shallow. I didn't think so much. Even without Master Chen, I will still offend Gu Jiani and Master Ma. It doesn't matter, Qin Shing shrugged and said. Master Chen laughed and said, Where does your confidence come from? Master Chen, I can fight. I can fight 10 people at once. Why should I be afraid of them? Qin Shing said deliberately. Master Chen shook his head and said, Do you think I will believe you? Qin Shing let out a long sigh and said, If Master Chen doesn't believe me, there is nothing I can do. At this time, Master Chen walked towards Qin Shing unhurriedly. He knocked on the chair as he walked and stared at Qin Shing, as if he wanted to see through Qin Shing. When he walked in front of Qin Shing, Master Chen suddenly asked, Who on earth are you? Chapter 11:27. Master Chen didn't rely on luck to get to where he was today. If he didn't even have the ability to judge people, the grass on his grave would have been several meters tall. Since the young man named Li Xiang walked into the box, he had been quietly looking at him. Did he really think that he was just lowering his head to eat? Obviously, it was not that simple. Sometimes, you didn't need to use your eyes to judge a person. When he saw this young man, he felt that this young man was not simple. It was no wonder that Yu Kai would recommend him to him. This young man had a familiar aura, and his every move made him feel like he was dealing with a big shot. He was sure that this young man had been through a lot, or he wouldn't have such an aura. If it was an ordinary young man, he would have been nervous when he saw him. Even if he pretended to be calm, he would show his flaws. However, this young man didn't. Therefore, Master Chen naturally doubted his identity. Qin Shing had guessed long ago that Master Chen would probably ask him about his identity. Even he himself felt that if he were Master Chen, he would definitely guess his identity. After all, everything that he had done was totally unlike what a person of the same age should have. Qin Shing smiled. Master Chen, haven't you investigated my identity clearly? Master Chen was silent for a while and continued. Then tell me, what did you do before you came to Chengdu? Before coming to Chengdu, I lived in a small town on the border of Sichuan and Tibet for a few years. When I was young, I also spent a few years in Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai. I did a lot of things with a few big shots. Later, I got used to many things and left, Qin Shing said half-truthfully. Master Chen said thoughtfully, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shanghai? Which big shots? Master Chen, you don't have to tell me this, right? You should know better than me why. Qin Shing laughed and said, If I tell you clearly, you will find out my background when you investigate it. How can I play? Master Chen thought that Qin Shing didn't want to have any contact with the past, or maybe he had too many enemies. These were the rules of Jianghu. He asked, Then why did you come to Chengdu again? Qin Shing said honestly, I'm tired of the dull life. I don't want to go back to the place I used to live, so I can only choose the nearby Chengdu. I didn't do it deliberately. Then I got involved in the affairs of the Gu family inexplicably. I want to help Gu Xining. That girl is very nice to me. Why are you looking for me again? Master Chen was determined to get to the bottom of it. Qin Shing shook his head and said, Didn't Master Chen say it just now? I need Master Chen to protect me. However, it was a coincidence that I had the chance. They said that Master Chen was even more powerful than Godfather Ma, so I gave it a try. I didn't expect to see Master Chen in person. Master Chen sat beside Qin Shing casually and said, If I don't help you, what will you do? Qin Shing thought for a while and said, If Master Chen doesn't help me and they are aggressive, I can only solve the problem in my own way. At worst, I can find a place to hide again. I understand, Master Chen said with a smile. At this time, Master Chen said again, Actually, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal for me to protect you. Even if old Ma doesn't agree, I can protect you. However, don't get involved in the affairs of the Gu family. Otherwise, I definitely can't protect you. After all, the price is too high and I won't get any benefit. Qin Shing smiled and said, I understand. Just wait for my news. Master Chen waved his hand and said. Qin Shing quickly stood up and said, Thank you, Master Chen. After I help you, you can stay by my side and work for me. Master Chen finally decided. Otherwise, there was no need for him to help Qin Shing. Qin Shing didn't have any opinion on this. He just wanted to use Master Chen to test Godfather Ma and see what else he could do. Of course, this was just a show. After talking about these things, Qin Shing walked out of the private club. Yu Kai had been waiting for him outside. When he saw Qin Shing, Yu Kai couldn't wait and said, Li Xiang, how was it? What did Master Chen say? Brother Yu, I hope you can take care of me in the future, Qin Shing said indifferently. Hearing this, Yu Kai understood that Master Chen had agreed. He quickly said, Brother, not bad. Work hard with Master Chen in the future. Let's go out and celebrate with you tonight. Qin Shing refused politely. Another day. I have something to do tonight. Another day is fine. Yu Kai didn't insist. Therefore, Qin Shing left Hua Shi Park in this way. An hour later, Qin Shing was already enjoying delicious food with Song Ryu at a food stall at the entrance of Nyushiku. In order to see Song Ryu, he went through a lot of trouble and returned 2 taxis. Zhou Yi didn't disturb them. He sat not far away and ordered a few dishes alone. After all, barbecue was better than dog food. After hearing Song Ryu talking about this sister, Qin Shing was a little curious and asked, Which sister? Why haven't I heard of her? Song Ryu ate the roasted corn and said with a chuckle, You definitely don't know. This sister has been married to Chengdu for several years. But if you go back and ask about her, you will know her story. Qin Xing asked with interest. Oh, this sister is from Beijing. No wonder you said that she can help you with this matter. It's not her, but her husband. Song Ryu smiled and helped Qin Xing wipe the oil stains at the corners of his mouth. Qin Xing was very curious. Who is her husband? Is he in politics in Sichuan? In Qin Xing's understanding, this sister's identity and background were definitely not simple. From Song Ryu's words, he could also tell that this sister's husband was also not simple. Obviously, it was a marriage between two powerful families, which meant that this sister's husband was very likely to be in politics and might be in a high position now. Song Ryu deliberately kept Qin Xing guessing. I won't tell you now. You will know tomorrow. Brother-in-law will go back to Chengdu tomorrow, and then invite us to dinner. You will understand when you see him. Qin Xing did not ask further. He replied, Okay, then I will tell you when I see him. After a while, Song Ryu suddenly lowered her voice and said, Uncle called me and said that Elder Long's time is running out. He is about to die. After hearing the news, Qin Xing frowned and said, It's too easy for him to die like this. But Elder Long still doesn't intend to let the Qin family go. You have to leave Chengdu as soon as possible. They already know that you are in Chengdu and may do something bad to you, Song Ryu said with a frown. She was most worried about Qin Xing's safety. Nothing could happen to him. Qin Xing fell into silence. It seemed that he had to solve the matter of the Gu family as soon as possible. However, with Zhou Yi and his aunt in Chengdu, who could do anything to him, if he took advantage of the situation, he might gain something, wouldn't he? Thinking of this, Qin Xing could not help but start to calculate. Just take it as the interest of these 3 years. After a long time, Qin Xing came to his senses. Song Ryu had been looking at him silently. At this time, Qin Xing asked again, Where is my uncle? Why doesn't he come out to see me? He has already returned to Beijing. He still needs to worry about my uncle's affairs, Song Ryu explained truthfully. Oh, I see. Qin Xing did not say anything. His uncle had been hiding from the world for so many years, and it was time for him to shoulder everything for the Qin family. Qin Xing continued to eat with Song Ryu and did not talk about these annoying things anymore. They talked about trivial family affairs, such as who got married and who had children in the past 3 years, and so on. In the evening, Qin Xing did not go home. Of course, he accompanied Song Ryu. All the time in Chengdu belonged to Song Ryu. In an alley in Beijing at night, 2 middle-aged men were also sitting at a barbecue stall, drinking yenjing and playing with skewers. The barbecue stall in the alley was ordinary and there were not many people at the table, but it was more smoky. Sitting here, they could overlook the bustling Guamao CBD not far away. The middle-aged man in a polo shirt frowned and said, Aren't we afraid of being killed by the old man? He looked gentle and elegant. The middle-aged man opposite him, who was wearing a short-sleeved shirt, big pants, and slippers, looked more like a Jianghu man. He laughed and said, How many days can the old man hold on? We still have to think about the future. We can't always be against the Qin family, the Zhu family, and the Song family. If the old man dies, many of our resources will disappear. Besides, who can afford to offend the Zhu family now? The gentle middle-aged man laughed and said, That's right. That's why I didn't fight for it this time. The middle-aged man in big pants sneered and said, Me too. Whoever wants to sit in this position can sit in it. I don't want to be the old man's scapegoat. I guess I will have to leave with the old man. The gentle middle-aged man continued, I heard that Qin Xing is in Chengdu. Lao he has already brought people there. The middle-aged man in big pants laughed and said, If he wants this position, let him fight for it. When something happens to him, the circle will be ours. The gentle middle-aged man immediately understood what was going on. He chuckled and said, "What do you mean?" The middle-aged man in big pants said in a deep voice, "As long as you understand." The two sides hit it off immediately. They were not in cahoots with each other. They just had a common goal. As for Lao he was just a sacrifice. They could treat him as a gift to the Qin family. In this way, their relationship with the Qin family could also be eased. Chapter 11:28. In the morning, when Song Ruyu and Qin Shing woke up, it was raining heavily, with lightning flashing and thunder rumbling. The weather was so gloomy that it seemed like the end of the world, which affected most people's mood. Chengdu was always like this in summer. Heavy rain always came unexpectedly. Therefore, people always said that if you could see the shielding snow in autumn today, you could probably see the ship of Wu tomorrow. Although it was a joke, it was also true. Qin Shing and Song Ryu were not in a hurry to get up. They just lay on the bed and watched the heavy rain outside. Song Ryu lay comfortably in Qin Shing's arms. During the 3 years when Qin Shing was away, every time it rained, she would want to have a warm embrace for her to lean on. People tended to be sad and sentimental when it rained. Qin Shing was bored and played with Song Ryu's hair. Of course, he would play with other parts of her body occasionally. However, Song Ryu would pout coquettishly. Qin Shing was afraid that his brain would be occupied by the enemy, so he dared not to go too far. After all, it was a situation where he hurt himself to hurt the enemy. "Lin Su is going back," Song Ryu suddenly said without warning. Qin Shing was stunned subconsciously. Since they had reunited, they seemed to have deliberately avoided these topics to avoid embarrassment or other unpleasantness. Qin Shing did not say anything. He really did not know what to say. Who knew what had happened in the past 3 years? Song Ryu continued, "Yuan Yuan will also come back." "Yuan Yuan? Who is Yuan Yuan?" Qin Shing asked confusedly. Song Ryu turned around and glanced at Qin Shing. After making sure that he was not playing dumb, she said, "Yuan Yuan is your daughter." There was a loud bang. Qin Shing's mind went blank. He was totally confused. For a moment, he did not know what to say, nor did he dare to say anything. The air froze at this moment, and the atmosphere gradually became awkward. He did not know how Song Ryu knew about this, nor did he know when she found out. Similarly, Qin Shing did not know Song Ryu's attitude towards this. Why did she say these words at this time? What was her mentality when she said these words? However, there seemed to be a voice in Qin Shing's heart saying, "It turns out that she is a daughter. A daughter is good, a father's sweet little cotton jacket." In the end, Song Ryu broke the deadlock. Song Ryu said calmly, "Lin Su and I have been contacting each other for the past 3 years since you disappeared. I already knew about Yuan Yuan's existence in the first year. I didn't investigate you on purpose. Eldest uncle told me about it. He asked me to make a choice." "I'm sorry I've made you suffer," Qin Shing said guiltily. Song Ryu said meaningfully, "There's nothing to feel aggrieved about. If you're really gone, Yuan Yuan will be your only existence in this world. What can I do even if I don't accept her?" "Of course, not only do I. You know Lin Su and Yuan Yuan, Zhou Wanqin from Shanghai, and your first girlfriend, Su Qin, who is far away in Xi'an." Qin Shing had thought that the atmosphere had eased. However, the next second, Song Ryu revealed the shocking news. For a moment, he didn't know how to face Song Ryu, his fiancée, who had waited for him for 3 years. She was so outstanding and so proud. She was the life partner of many men in Siju City, and a good wife and loving mother that many big families wanted to marry. In the end, Qin Shing took advantage of her. So why should she suffer this grievance? Song Ryu asked calmly, "What are you afraid of?" Qin Shing was not afraid. He just didn't know how to face Song Ryu. At this time, it seemed inappropriate for him to say anything. It seemed that he was not qualified to speak. Song Ryu looked at the drifting rain outside the window and said calmly, Since I can wait for 3 years and come to Chengdu, I have already accepted these things. Otherwise, when you go back to Beijing, maybe my child can call you uncle. Was she really so generous? Which woman would be so generous? Moreover, she was such an outstanding and proud woman. However, sometimes, for the sake of many things, she had to take a step back. As for Qin Sheng, he could take the initiative to control the situation at any time. However, when facing Song Ruyu, he was somewhat at a loss as to what to do. After a long silence, Song Ruyu continued, "You don't have to feel wronged or say anything. This is my choice. I don't need anyone's opinion. Just like in the past 3 years, I don't need their pity." Since he had known Song Ruyu until now, it seemed that this was the first time Qin Sheng felt that Song Ruyu was so powerful that he could not resist. Most of the time, this woman was as calm as water in front of him. However, when she was serious, Qin Sheng felt that even he was no match for her. Song Ruyu said half-jokingly, "I've talked to Sister Qingyi these days. She said that if we look at it from another perspective, we should also be happy that the man we like is also liked by other excellent women. This means that we have a good taste. Now that I think about it, it seems to make sense." Hearing this, Qin Sheng didn't feel good. However, he also learned that Sister Qingyi's husband seemed to be the same kind of person as him, a womanizer. Song Ruyu narrowed her eyes and said, "I've seen Lin Su and Zhou Wanqing, but not Su Qin, because I envy her." She really envied Su Qin, because Su Qin met Qin Sheng in his best years and accompanied him through the longest time of his life. How could she not envy him? However, there was something else that Song Ruyu didn't say directly. It seemed that she shouldn't say it. She had said what should be said, but suddenly, Song Ruyu wanted to say it. Of course, this was something that had to be said sooner or later. At this time, Song Ruyu slowly stood up and said, "I'm going to visit an elder at noon. I'll pick you up at the bookstore in the afternoon. Then we'll go to Mount Qincheng." Song Ruyu, who had always been used to sleeping naked, was full of beauty at this time. However, Qin Sheng was not in the mood to appreciate this beautiful scenery. He was only thinking about what Song Ruyu had said. So, for the whole afternoon, Qin Sheng stayed in the bookstore and stared blankly out of the window. Ning came up several times and saw that Qin Sheng was absent-minded, which made her quite worried. She had to call her aunt, who had disappeared for another 2 days. Now, Qin Sheng and his aunt were always away from the bookstore, leaving Ning to guard it alone. The most important thing was that the business of the bookstore was not good, which was really a headache. Ning sat downstairs and thought for a long time with her head leaning against Sichuan University. Finally, she thought of a very likely possibility. Her brother Li Xiang had fallen out of love. Thinking of this, Ning hurriedly ran over and said, "Brother Li Xiang, have you been dumped by Gu Xining?" She originally wanted to ask if Li Xianga and Gu Xining had broken up, but the words inexplicably became like this. Perhaps she had always felt that Li Xianga and Gu Xining were not suitable for each other. After all, Li Xianga was an old bachelor who had nothing, while Gu Xining was a fair, rich, and beautiful woman who had everything she wanted. The two of them were not in the same world at all. Therefore, it was normal for him to dump her after he got tired of her. Qin Sheng had been feeling melancholy, wondering if Song Ruyu wanted to have a showdown with him. But suddenly hearing Ning's inexplicable words, Qin Sheng almost burst out laughing. He came to his senses and stared at Ning, saying, "Ning, what are you thinking about in your little head every day?" Ning felt that all men needed to save face. Maybe she was too direct, so she continued to say, "Brother Li Xiang, I have already said that you and Gu Xining are not suitable for each other. How could she like you? But don't be sad, you will definitely meet a better one. I still have many classmates." Qin Sheng really did not dare to continue talking with Ning, otherwise he might really be led astray by Ning, so he could only drive Ning away. After Ah Ning left, she continued to think about how to comfort brother Li Xiang. But in the afternoon, when a beauty who was more beautiful and elegant than Gu Xining appeared in the bookstore and asked for brother Li Xiang by name, Ah Ning felt that she might have thought wrong. Her brother Li Xiang might not be sad, but should be melancholy. Melancholy about what? Melancholy between this elegant beauty and Gu Xining, the fair, rich, and beautiful woman. Which one should he choose? In an instant, Ah Ning decided that Qin Xing was a womanizer and a scumbag. If Qin Xing knew this, he would probably be a little dumbfounded. He could only say that Ah Ning was really good at judging people. Your brother Li Xiang was really a scumbag. Chapter 11:29. There were many beautiful women in Chengdu. Beautiful women often came to the bookstore, especially those artistic young women. However, Ah Ning thought that they were not as beautiful as his aunt. Some women were just beautiful in appearance, while some were beautiful in temperament and charm. Such a woman was very rare. They could only be found by chance. They needed to experience a lot of things to precipitate it. But today this beauty was really on par with his aunt. Ah Ning felt that this beauty could be on par with his aunt. Her temperament was very unique, a kind of temperament that Ah Ning had never seen before. Her eyes revealed a kind of confidence, wisdom, and intellectuality. She was cold and had a smile on her face, but it gave people a natural sense of distance, as if it was difficult to integrate into her atmosphere. Yes, if Ah Ning knew the family background of this elegant beauty in front of him, as well as the environment in which she worked, he would naturally understand all this. After all, she was Song Ryu. Song Ryu dressed very intelligently when she was at work. However, after coming to Chengdu, in order to be approachable, she dressed more casually. Most of the time, she wore a simple dress and flat shoes. Even so, it was difficult to hide her unique temperament. Wherever she went, she would be the focus. Seeing Ah Ning in a daze, Song Ryu chuckled and said, "Ah Ning, is Li Xiang not here?" Of course, she knew Ah Ning, as well as the story between Ah Ning, Qin Xing, and her aunt. She also felt sorry for this girl. Fortunately, she met her aunt and Qin Xing. Her life would be completely different in the future, so she was really lucky. In the vast sea of people, how many people could meet a benefactor who could easily change their life? Ah Ning was surprised and said, "Do you know me?" Song Ryu said honestly, "I heard Li Xiang mention it." Hearing this, Ah Ning felt that the beautiful woman in front of her must have a close relationship with brother Li Xiang, which confirmed her idea that brother Li Xiang was a scumbag. Ah Ning didn't know what to talk with this beautiful woman, so she had to shout upstairs, "Brother Li Xiang, a beautiful woman is looking for you." Song Ryu said playfully, "It seems that there are many beautiful women looking for Li Xiang." Ah Ning originally wanted to say that it was good that she knew, but she thought it was better not to say too much. After all, it was brother Li Xiang's private affairs. At this time, Qin Xing had already come down. Seeing Song Ryu find a place to sit, he quickly walked over and said, "You are here. Isn't Auntie here?" Song Ryu asked in confusion. Qin Xing said casually, "I haven't seen her for a few days. Who knows what she has been up to?" On the other side, Ah Ning muttered in his heart, "It seems that this beauty knows a lot. Brother Li Xiang, what else have you not told her?" Previously, I thought that Gu Xining had dumped you, and I comforted you out of kindness, but now I think that you must have cheated on her. Poor beauty Gu Xining. How did you meet brother Li Xiang? Song Ryu didn't think too much about it. She nodded and said, "Oh, maybe my aunt has something to deal with. Let's go. Brother-in-law is back." Qin Xing thought for a while and said, "Do I need to bring anything with me? I can't go there empty-handed, can I?" "No thanks. I'm ready," Song Ryu said with a smile. Qin Xing didn't need to worry about these trivial things. Qin Xing nodded silently and said, "Let's go then." Although Song Ryu and Qin Sheng's conversation was very ordinary, Ning was extremely shocked after hearing it. What did it mean? Were they going to meet their parents? How did you guys develop so quickly? How come I didn't know anything about it? Who on earth was Gu Xining? Just when Qin Sheng was about to leave with Song Ryu, Ning finally couldn't help but ask, "Brother Li Xiang, won't you introduce her to us?" Ning's words were a little angry, but who asked her to be a little emotional now? Who asked the image of Brother Li Xiang in her heart to completely collapse? It was not until then that Qin Sheng remembered that he had forgotten about this. He turned around unhurriedly and introduced, "Song Ryu, my fiancé." Hearing this, Ning's mind went blank instantly. She was so scared that she almost fainted. Song Ryu just smiled at Ning and nodded. Her eyes seemed to be telling Ning, "Now you know everything, right?" How could Song Ryu not know what Ning was thinking? In this way, Song Ryu took Qin Sheng's arm and left the bookstore, leaving Ning, who was confused in the wind and couldn't figure out what was going on. What was going on? Song Ryu showed up here without any scruples today, which showed that Qin Sheng's business in Chengdu was coming to an end. After all, his brother-in-law was the most powerful person in the underground world of Sichuan and Chongqing. On the way to Mount Qinqing, Song Ryu said half-jokingly, "Does the girl named Ning like you? Everyone likes me. Am I so popular?" Qin Sheng said with a smile. Song Ryu asked in reply, "What about Gu Xining?" Oh, Qin Sheng was stunned and smiled awkwardly. Who asked him to be Li Xiang in the past? If he had known that he was Qin Sheng and had such a beautiful fiancée, as well as Lin Su and Qing who were his confidants waiting for him, he would not have had any contact with Gu Xining. Therefore, in order to repay this debt, he had to take the initiative to solve this problem for Gu Xining. Chang Baji, who was driving in the front, was serious. In fact, he was very happy in his heart. It seemed that only Song Ryu could deal with Qin Sheng. This was the third time that Qin Sheng had come to Mount Qinqing. The first time was when he had traveled around. He had met Lin Su in Chengdu and walked around Mount Qinqing with her. The second time was when he had come to Mount Qinqing with Gu Xining. This was the third time that he had come here with Song Ryu today. Every time, he had been with a woman. Admittedly, he was quite popular with women. Of course, he was really fated to be in Chengdu. Before they had left Chengdu, they had found that there were cars following them. Chang Baji cleverly got rid of them. After all, he had done this kind of thing with Qin Sheng many times before. Therefore, when they arrived at Mount Qinqing, they had already gotten rid of them. Chang Baji kept driving until he stopped at the gate of a manor surrounded by iron railings. The gate of the manor looked very ordinary, with only one iron gate. At this time, the gate opened slowly. After confirming their identities, the security guards at the gate let them pass without any worries. After driving in, Qin Sheng found that there was still some distance from the manor. After walking along this road for hundreds of meters, they arrived at the rail front gate of the manor. At the gate, there were still security guards blocking them. Qin Sheng observed for a while and found that these security guards were not ordinary people. They were almost the same as the bodyguards of the Qin family. Qin Sheng couldn't help wondering how powerful this brother-in-law's background was. How could he have such a grand entrance? At first, he had guessed that this brother-in-law might be a big shot in the government, but now he had to eliminate this idea. Otherwise, he wouldn't dare to have such a grand entrance. Could it be that he was a big shot in other fields, such as a business tycoon? All of a sudden, Qin Sheng recalled that when he had come to Mount Qinqing with Gu Xining and Liangzhe last time, Liangzhe had said that there was a very mysterious manor in Mount Qinqing. The owner of this manor was the big shot in the underground world of Sichuan and Chongqing. This big shot's name was Master Zhao. It seemed that Master Ma and Master Chun had started their business with Master Zhao. Could it be? Impossible. It couldn't be such a coincidence. Qin Sheng shook his head. However, he didn't ask Song Ryu. Anyway, he would find out the answer soon. Finally, the Benz drove directly into the Real gate of the manor, and stopped at the gate of the main building. At this time, Qin Sheng saw a young couple standing at the gate with 3 kids playing with each other. Looking from afar, the young couple seemed to be in their 30s. As for the 3 kids playing with each other, the older girl seemed to be 7 or 8 years old, the younger boy about 5 or 6 years old, and the younger girl about 3 or 4 years old. As for the young couple, the woman was very beautiful and elegant, which was very similar to Song Ryu's. She was dressed intelligently and looked like a good wife and a loving mother. As for the man, he did not look special. He gave people a feeling that he was very approachable. He was playing with the children with a warm smile. In Qin Sheng's opinion, the man was not worthy of this beautiful woman. Qin Sheng didn't need to guess to know that the woman must be the sister that Song Ryu had mentioned. She was from a big family in Suzhou City, and the man must be her husband. After the car stopped, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu got off at the same time. Song Ryu went straight to the young couple and greeted them with a smile. "Sister, brother-in-law, sorry to keep you waiting." The woman replied with a smile, "Ryu, why are you so polite? Is it because Qin Sheng is here today?" The man also said calmly, "Ryu, we meet again. The last time was last year, right? Brother-in-law, you are very mysterious. It's so difficult to see you," Song Ryu replied with a smile. The man laughed and said, "Now we meet, right?" Everyone burst into laughter at the same time. At this time, Qin Sheng and Chang Baji had already taken out the things they had prepared. It turned out that they were all gifts for the kids. No wonder he didn't need to worry about them. Qin Sheng walked over with the things and said, "Sister, brother-in-law, sorry to disturb you." The woman walked over slowly and said, "Qin Sheng, your sister often talked about you, but this is the first time I see you. You are more handsome than I thought. No wonder you can capture Ryu. I don't know how many people are envious of you." Qin Sheng was a little embarrassed by the compliment and said, "Sister, you are also very beautiful. Ryu is much less beautiful in front of you. So you are not afraid to go back and kneel on the washboard?" the woman said half-jokingly. At this time, the man took the initiative to reach out and said, "Qin Sheng, welcome to Chengdu. When I was in Beijing, I had dinner with your father several times. But at that time, you were not back yet. I didn't expect to see you in Chengdu. Brother-in-law, sorry to disturb you." Qin Sheng quietly looked at the man and replied. He always felt that the man's temperament was very special. It could be said that he was approachable, but there was a kind of indescribable feeling. In short, he was very natural and casual. The man withdrew his hand and said, "You are welcome." At this time, the woman called several kids over and greeted them. "Call them uncle and auntie." The man, who was quite delicate and a little strange, shouted, "Mom, how can you call them uncle and auntie? You should call them brother and sister." "Sister, you are so beautiful. You are even more beautiful than my mother." The older girl also came over and shouted. The girl was so beautiful. Her big watery eyes seemed to be able to speak, which was really cute. The little girl was a little afraid of strangers. She hid behind the man and stared at Qin Sheng and Song Ryu pitifully, which made Qin Sheng really want to pinch her pink face. To be honest, such a warm scene really made Qin Sheng envy. Subconsciously, Qin Sheng thought of his daughter whom he had not met yet. He wondered what his daughter looked like. Isn't it also so cute? Thinking of this, Qin Sheng could not help but feel a little guilty. After all, he did not fulfill his responsibility as a father. Chapter 1130. My name is Zhao Mingxi. Song Ryu had told Qin Sheng that the name of this young woman, whose eyes were always shining, was Li Qingyi. She was born in a big family in Suzhou City. Qin Shing didn't guess which big family it was. After all, there were several big families with the surname Li in Siju City, and he didn't know much about them. As for the name of his brother-in-law, he didn't know. However, Song Ryu said that they had 2 children, but Qin Shing saw 3 children today, which made him a little confused. If there was a 4th child, Qin Shing would be even more confused, because one of their children had been staying in the UK recently. His mother had taken him to travel in Europe. At this moment, the living room of Qinqing Villa was filled with joy and harmony, and the atmosphere was very warm. 3 children of different ages and personalities were playing there. Their laughter always brought all kinds of happiness to the adults, so that the adults felt that they were several years younger. Qin Shing and Song Ryu chatted with the couple. Most of the time, it was the 2 women with similar temperaments who chatted with each other. The 2 men seemed to be a bit quiet. They only responded when someone asked them a few questions. After a while, the 2 men were a little bored. They looked at each other and went outside the villa to smoke. There was a tacit understanding between men. Qin Shing didn't bring a cigarette with him. The man took the initiative to send him a small panda. He smoked secretly now, because the 3 children were watching him like a monitor 24 hours a day. At this time, he took the opportunity to smoke while the 3 children were playing inside. The smoking place was in a corner of the villa. If one didn't look for it carefully, he wouldn't be able to find it. Qin Shing smiled and joked, "Brother-in-law, your family status is not high. It seems that Sichuan men are all greedy." Hearing this, the man couldn't help laughing. He was always so calm, as if he had experienced too many vicissitudes and stories, which made his temperament not similar to that of his peers. He was a bit like an old man who had retired at 60 or 70 years old. The man couldn't help but sigh. When you get married and have children, you will know that men have the lowest status in the family. Sometimes they may even be inferior to the family pet. Alas, it's so hard for men. Qin Shing smiled and said, "This is all love. I guess it will be the same in the future. In fact, women are nothing, but children are not easy to deal with. If they cry, I guess our hearts will probably melt. Yes, what I'm most afraid of is that they get sick. Seeing them in pain is more painful than being stabbed several times. So, you and Ryu should have a baby as soon as possible," the man said happily. He already knew some things, but he would not mention the things that should not be mentioned. After all, these were other people's private affairs. If he got too involved, it would only arouse disgust. Qin Shing shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I haven't gotten married yet." "You're not young anymore. It's time to get married," the man said with a smile. After regaining his memory, Qin Shing had been thinking about this problem. He had made Song Ryu wait for 3 years and the 3 families for such a long time. Qin Shing knew it was time, and he already had time in his heart. Qin Shing said faintly, "If I'm not mistaken, it should be around New Year's Day. Maybe even earlier." "Then I'll congratulate you and Ryu in advance," the man said sincerely. Qin Shing said politely, "Thank you, brother-in-law." Qin Shing said, "When will you go back to Beijing?" the man asked thoughtfully. Qin Shing said in a low voice, "In a few days. I will go back after I finish my business in Chengdu." "Ryu told me about your business. If you think it is troublesome, I will ask someone to deal with it." The man took the initiative to offer an olive branch. Qin Shing was confused and guessed. Since Song Ryu told him, he obviously knew what it was. But he said that he would ask someone to deal with it. Was it really a coincidence? Qin Shing finally couldn't help but ask, "Brother-in-law, what do you do?" "My name is Zhao Qiushi. They used to call me Master Zhao. Now I am a nanny." The man smiled lightly. It seemed that he was joking, but it was so true. Hearing this self-introduction, Qin Shing was stunned. It took him a long time to come to his senses. Sure enough, it was really a coincidence. Before Qin Shing and the man called Zhao Qiushi, or Master Zhao, could continue their conversation, a little fairy suddenly rushed out from the corner and shouted unhappily, "Dad, why are you smoking again?" "I'm going to tell Auntie." The man, who had been extremely mighty and domineering just now, almost dropped the cigarette in his hand when he heard this. He quickly put out the cigarette butt and muttered in a low voice, "Your brother Qin Sheng wants to talk to me about something. Don't tell your aunt. How about a KFC meal?" Qin Sheng almost scolded. Was he going to be the scapegoat? 2 meals. The little fairy snorted. Zhao Qiushi didn't bargain anymore. He directly said, "Deal." Therefore, this short deal was reached quickly. When Zhao Qiushi left with Qin Sheng, the little fairy winked at him mischievously. It seemed that she had already guessed that they were smoking here. It also seemed that she was thanking brother Qin Sheng for the KFC. In the living room, at the invitation of Song Ryu's sister, the little boy was playing the piano for her. The little girl was making trouble at the side. She didn't run away until the big sister came in. It seemed that the big sister was the most afraid of at home. This made Qin Sheng couldn't help but think of his sister. Since they really knew each other, the atmosphere at dinner was very harmonious. The 2 women were still chatting about trivial matters, while the 2 men started to drink, regretting that they had not met earlier. Qin Sheng knew about the ups and downs of this Master Zhao. He also knew that this Master Zhao had quite a lot of power in Siju City. After all, not everyone could marry that Sister Cyan, and not everyone could become the uncrowned king of the local world in Sichuan and Chongqing. It was no wonder that he had said that he could handle it so easily just now. Because in his eyes, the Gu family's matter was not a big deal at all. The so-called Master Ma, Master Chen, Master Wang, and Master Li meant nothing to him. Qin Sheng could not help but have a new plan. Qin Sheng didn't drink much because a few children came over and interrupted their drinking party. They had to change the date to drink to their heart's content next time. The adults were playing with the children. Qin Sheng spent more time playing with the little girl called Tuan Tuan. She was pink and cute just like Tuan Tuan. Maybe she thought that she was very similar to the daughter she had never met, so she was quite close to her. When it was almost time, Qin Sheng and Song Ryu were ready to go back to the city. Zhao Qiushi and Li Qingyi didn't ask them to stay. After all, they had their own things to do. On the way back, Song Ryu said calmly, "Uncle called in the afternoon. He said that Master Long already knows that you are in Chengdu and has sent people to deal with you." Qin Sheng frowned and said, "This old thing is really persistent. But Master Long can't protect himself. This is just a last-ditch struggle. Don't worry about it. You can beat him at his own game," Song Ryu said meaningfully. That was because she and her first uncle had already discussed it. It was old Master Long who had leaked the news to them. Since old Master Long wanted to court death, they would beat him at his own game. In this way, Qin Sheng could seize the opportunity to return and speed up old Master Long's disappointment. Therefore, Song Ryu told him her plan. She wanted to go to the Sea of Bamboos in South Chuan in Yibin. She would wait for the fish to take the bait there. In order to avoid the previous situation, they had prepared a perfect plan. Not only Chang Baji, but also Zhuang Zhou, another master of the Qin family, had been transferred to Chengdu. His aunt, who was already in Chengdu, was also there. It would be difficult for anyone to deal with the situation. Moreover, Song Ryu had asked her brother-in-law to help her. It could be said that everything was foolproof. Now that Qin Sheng knew that his brother-in-law was the famous Master Zhao in Sichuan and Chongqing, he also knew that the Gu family's business was coming to an end. He was ready to do something. After this trip to the Sea of Bamboos in South Chuan in Yibin, he should go back to Beijing. It had been 3 years. He was finally going back. However, in order to avoid suspicion, Song Ryu asked Qin Sheng to take Gu Xining to the Sea of Bamboos in the south of Chuan, which made Qin Sheng's eyes wide open. He didn't expect Song Ryu to be so generous. Or was there something fishy going on? Therefore, Qin Xing didn't dare to say yes at first. He stared at Song Ryu for a long time. Then Song Ryu stared at him and said, "What are you thinking about?" Qin Xing stopped thinking. He didn't know, nor did he dare to ask. Anyway, on this trip to the Sea of Bamboos in South Chuan, he had to keep a reasonable distance from Gu Xining. After all, Song Ryu was watching from behind. At the same time, he couldn't be suspected, which was a headache. It seemed that this was a journey of death. Chapter 1131. In Gu Xining's mansion in downtown Chengdu. At this moment, Gu Xining's mother and uncle were trying to persuade Gu Xining. They had completely compromised with Gu Jiani. Gu Jiani was under more and more pressure, and more people were trying to persuade them. After all, Gu Xining's uncle was not in Chengdu, and their family did not have enough connections to solve this problem. For the safety of Gu Xining and her daughter, they had to make such a decision. What's wrong with Li Xiang? He still doesn't answer the phone. Min Feng, Gu Xining's uncle, was a little annoyed. He and his sister had originally asked Li Xiang to meet today, hoping that Li Xiang would not interfere in this matter, so that there would not be any accidents. After all, they also knew Li Xiang's background, so they would not be able to help, and would only bring more trouble. However, Li Xiang still did not answer the phone, which made Min Feng very angry. He was afraid that Li Xiang was not afraid of the tiger and would fight against Gu Jiani. Gu Xining hung up the phone. She did not know what she was doing, but she was also worried. Min Shu tried to ease the atmosphere. Maybe Li Xiang is busy today, or maybe he will come later. Sis, I'm still going to say the same thing. I won't interfere with Cici and Li Xiang's relationship, but Li Xiang shouldn't show off. You guys know better than anyone what kind of person Gu Jiani is, and Mr. Ma behind him is even worse. For your and Cici's safety, I have to persuade him, Min Feng said resolutely. At this time, Min Shu also echoed, Cici, your uncle is right. Although this is your father's business, for your safety, you have to persuade Li Xiang. We are not short of money now, and you can do other things with Li Xiang in the future. Why do you have to do this? Gu Xining knew that both her mother and uncle were thinking about her and Li Xiang. It was not easy for them to approve of Li Xiang. How could they let Li Xiang do whatever he wanted? Mom, I will persuade him, Gu Xining said with a frown. Min Feng was very unhappy as he said, Sister, I think we'd better not wait. If he really acts recklessly, I think Cici should be careful. To put it simply, Cici, you've been blinded by love. A man in his 30s has no house, no car, no money, no family background, and no ability. I really don't know what you see in him. Uncle, please stop, Gu Xining said, feeling wronged. Min Shu let out a long sigh and said, Cici, you've grown up. I won't persuade you about these things. But if you really get hurt one day, don't blame me for not stopping you today. Gu Xining nodded with red eyes and said, Mom, I know. I won't regret it. Seeing his niece like this, Min Feng also felt somewhat distressed. He said calmly, Cici, don't blame me for my harsh words. I did it for your sake. Who asked you to be so young? What you went through, we all went through when we were young. Someone will get hurt. After that, he said to Min Shu, Sister, let's go. Let Cici think about it. Qin Xing and Song Ryu separated after returning to the downtown area. Song Ryu went to the hotel alone. Zhuang Zhou, Nangong, and the bodyguards of the Qin family would come to Chengdu tonight. She had to discuss other plans with them. Qin Xing could only get off on the way and take a taxi home pitifully. The bookstore was closed at this time, so Qin Xing had to go home and rest. Since he was going to meet Master Zhao today, he set his phone to silent in the afternoon. On the way back, his phone ran out of battery, but he didn't notice it at all. After all, no one had contacted him. When he returned to the gate of the community, he saw Gu Xining standing beside the Ferrari waiting for him. It had been raining from last night to this afternoon, so it was a little cold. Gu Xining was only wearing a dress, so she was a little cold and shivering. Qin Xing didn't expect that Gu Xining would be waiting for him at the gate of the community. If anything happened, she could directly call him. When he took out his phone, he found that it had been turned off automatically. Qin Xing walked over slowly, took off his coat, and was about to hand it to Gu Xining. Meanwhile, he was about to ask her why she was waiting for him here. Unexpectedly, Gu Xining was a little angry. She pushed Qin Xing's arm away and asked angrily, "Why didn't you answer my call?" Qin Xing didn't expect that Gu Xining would have such a bad temper. He was stunned for half a second before he explained, "I had something to do in the evening, so my phone was on silent. I didn't expect that it would turn off automatically when it ran out of battery." "When did you resign from the bar? Why didn't you tell me? Do you know how worried I was?" Gu Xining asked stubbornly. Qin Xing finally understood and said, "I resigned 2 days ago. I'm sorry that I didn't tell you and made you wait for so long. Anyway, put on your coat first. Don't catch a cold." "Do you know how worried I was about you?" Gu Xining continued to shout. "If something happened to you, what would I do?" Qin Xing knew that she had been wronged, so he had to comfort her. "It's all my fault. I went to meet a friend today, so I didn't pay attention to my phone. I won't do it again, okay?" Gu Xining was just wronged, so she vented in this way. When she had vented enough, she directly threw herself into Qin Xing's arms and started sobbing. Qin Xing had no choice but to hug Gu Xining and comfort her. Who would like to see a beautiful woman cry? Who wouldn't feel sorry for her? After a long time, Qin Xing let go of Gu Xining and said, "Are you okay now? It's so late. Let me take you home first, okay?" Gu Xining didn't say anything and got in the car alone. Qin Xing didn't take the initiative to drive because he was drunk. On the way back, he could tell Gu Xining that he was going to Yibin Bamboo Sea in South Chuan tomorrow. On the way home, Gu Xining finally calmed down. She whispered, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been angry with you just now." "It's okay. It's also my fault. Isn't it because you care about me?" Qin Xing replied with a smile. He was not angry at all. He just felt sorry for Gu Xining. Gu Xining continued, "My mother and uncle came to see you tonight and wanted to talk to you. Who knew that they couldn't reach you after calling you so many times? In the end, they couldn't wait anymore and went back." "Your mother and uncle wanted to see me? What's the matter?" Qin Xing was a little confused. Gu Xining had to tell him the truth. "They want you to stay out of our family business and let us handle it ourselves." Hearing this, Qin Xing understood what was going on. He was a little playful. "How to handle it? Are you afraid of Gu Jiani and compromise with him? He's the murderer who killed your father." The last sentence made Gu Xining's eyes turn red again. "Yes, he's the murderer who killed my father. Now we compromise with the murderer. What's wrong with this society? But what can we do?" Gu Xining pretended to be strong and said, "What can we do? Are we a match for them? Mom and Uncle are also doing this for you and for me. They don't want any accidents to happen to us. I said that I can solve it. Don't you believe me?" Qin Xing didn't want to explain too much and said directly. It was not that Gu Xining didn't believe Qin Xing. It was because she knew all about Qin Xing's current situation. How could he solve it? Gu Xining didn't want to hurt Qin Xing. She could only say, "I believe you, but I don't want anything to happen to you. Since you believe me, let me do it. I also have something to discuss with you," Qin Xing said thoughtfully. Gu Xining was confused. "What's the matter?" Qin Xing explained, "Accompany me to Yibin Bamboo Sea in South Chuan tomorrow." "Go to Yibin Bamboo Sea in South Chuan? What for?" Gu Xining was even more confused. Qin Xing had already thought of a reason. He smiled and said, "To meet an old friend. After meeting him, you'll know what to do about your family. If even he can't do anything, I won't show off. What do you think?" Hearing Qin Sheng's words, Gu Xining was finally relieved. She directly nodded and agreed. After sending Gu Xining home, Qin Sheng could finally go back to sleep. Not long after he returned home and charged his mobile phone, Song Ryu called and said, "It seems that there are more than one group of people following you. I guess the trip to Chuan Bamboo Sea in South Chuan will be lively." Qin Sheng couldn't help but be lost in thought. More than one group of people? It was very simple. In addition to the people sent by Elder Long, there was also Gu Jiani, who was on Master Ma's side. If there was a third group, it must be sent by Master Chen to investigate him. Qin Sheng didn't care about this. Anyway, in the trip to Chuan Bamboo Sea, he would deal with whoever dared to do anything to him. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.